fellow generals. How are you today? We are seeing if the stream is going to start up. I was hosting Robin Blitz, another good streamer, but we got to see if it's going to convert over to this correctly through Restream. Yes. Okay, there we go. Yes, that's all looking good. All looking very, very good. I know you're something of a frozen screen there, but hey, we're going to be continuing our Soviet Union game. That is a new thing for me. We've been fighting here in Spain. We've had a little bit of a turnaround, but we will continue that in just a moment. Well, I think we're mostly ready. Okay, and Hypebot is saying that Arno is hosting me very good on Mixer. We do sort of want to have more views on Mixer. Not more views everywhere, but Mixer is cool to be a new platform on. Oh, that went weird. Frame skipped. Encoding lag. Memory usage disk full. Let me check one thing here. Let's just make one. Oh yeah, I thought so. Good. And hey, Arno now hosting. Great. Hello, Arno. Oh, I need to shift the thing. Why don't you stay where you put you? There we go. And how's your day going so far, Arno? I'm doing well. Been up for a few hours. Played a little, just a few moments of Enlisted. Yeah. I don't know. I think Enlisted is a good idea, but I'm not yet sold on it as my sort of go-to first-person shooter. I love War Thunder, as you know. Yeah, there's right now, if you don't know or know, maybe you do, they're doing another open alpha, I think, this weekend of it. That will be a brief time open. It's still very much an alpha. Okay, well, let's record an episode here. Let's see how all this goes. Hey, Ari's here as well. Very good. Nice to have you here, Ari. Okay. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 with my playthrough of the Soviet Union. We're playing Joe Stalin and trying to save the world from prosperity and freedom for the benefit of equal misery. I think that's an accurate description of what the Soviet Union. Well, before we start messing around with the Civil War, we can. Okay, we should. A little bit of squeak noise there. Okay. Continue to develop. What are we researching? Okay. Fighters, it's 38. small arms there. Artillery 39. Just trying to see where we want to. Very good. Yeah, I just literally played like less than 5 minutes worth of Enlisted. And so don't really have any comment on how well the AI is doing. You know, warfare can be a very chaotic situation. I was able to, effectively shoot a few people, but just kept getting shot a bit. And so I was just doing that just before coming on here. So it really didn't give it a proper chance. But let's do that. And Army experience, division defense, training time, army maneuver. Yeah, we have 3 right now, armored divisions fighting in Spain, so let's increase their capabilities. Mentioning it, we're going to go on a limited offensive here to try to disrupt. Let's attack here. Let's move Mountain Division into there. See if we can pocket these guys. They can support that attack. Okay, well now we have that. Yeah, let's see if we can close that and support that attack. We also have the fight up here. Let's go across the river here. Okay. Trial of anti-Soviet Trotskyist Center. Despite Leon Trotsky's being forced into exile, I don't know if at this point in 38, but eventually he ends up in Mexico. I don't know if they'll say that here. To exile, Joseph Stalin fears that he has secret supporters within the party. A series of rapid arrests and brutal interrogations have yielded confessions and testimonies conveniently pointing to some of Stalin's rivals. However, the more questions are asked and the deeper the secret police delves into the letters and journals, the more people are implicated, if indirectly. Party members are being believed that Stalin's absolute power and the death of his wife has isolated him to the point where he perceives anyone as a threat. But isn't that exactly what a traitor would say? Yes. Hello. Ulf Jonsson? I hope I'm not butchering that too badly. Yes, Stalin was a paranoiac. Yes, paranoiacs can have real enemies, and Stalin definitely did have real enemies, but he was also a paranoiac. That is quite true. Katalin's wife is suspected. He cannot be trusted either. Khrushchev dabbled with Trotskyism in the past. He must go. Red X confession. Several people in the party. Party members can be trusted. This paranoia must cease. Will lead to civil war in future. Yeah, I think we're going to take the political party hit. Nearly perfect. Well, good. Okay, well, let's rush to this air base there. And then we're gonna rush to Barcelona, and this is mostly just to cause some chaos and havoc, and then back to here. And up to here, then up to here, then back to here. This is just to like mess with them. Okay, we have a pocket now. Good. Attack the pocket. Well, we can cut off those divisions. Okay, no, you stop. You attack up to there. Well, we may turn this Spanish Civil War thing around. That would be interesting. Support that attack. Where is our... Okay, yeah, mountain division is there. Okay, well... cut that pocket down. Okay, very good. Help defend there. A lot of Portuguese troops I'm noticing. At least for the small size of the nation and actual smallness of any real commitment. Because I don't think Portugal ever sent any army units into the Civil War, though there were volunteers. Well, I don't know how much, because we do, you say matter of time, but we are facing with German and other interventionists as well. I would have thought our fairly large Soviet commitment in combination with it being human, not AI controlled, that we would have done better, because I've often watched the AI fight just so badly, or so... There you go there. You hit them from that side. Okay, that's army division here. Grab up that province and then support this attack. Be pocketing, but we'll be pushing that. Yeah, IKB, good to have you here. How's China doing? Well, of course, Ari wants to know about China. China is just, you know, skirmishing with the Japanese right now, it looks like. Reasonably well. Okay, we have more military production. Let's look at our current needs. Well, we need light tanks, it looks like. And, of course, bombers and fighters, but light tanks would be a thing to keep our current operations going. Effectively. And one division to there. Get there before they can get there. Good. Let's push to there. Out back to here. What? Okay, well. Let's push on the far side of the river. Oh, we're on the outskirts of Madrid again. Wow. Yeah, you push to there. Okay, research finished. Heavy fighter, tactical bomber. Tactical bomber looks like it would be a good option for us. I think we're going to counterattack against those panzers. Fighter baiting. Okay, well. We do have a lot of experience gained from operations down here. Okay, that's a little worrying, but I think we can fight our way out back out of that pocket. Let's fall back to here. Like that. A little better. Well, we just lost a armor division. Okay, well. That wasn't a good move by me. I did not do that well. Yeah, well, the four-way civil war really sort of makes the Republican side not do so well. I think I want to see if we can send another division to Spain. Can we, oh, let's give him a army. Can we just attach it directly to that? No, let's try this again. No, won't let me do that. Never lost a division and tried to send a reinforcement before. Send volunteers. Oh. Maybe I should, well, your maximum total force. Okay, well, let's, You can send 8, yes. So we want to, we have 5 currently. So let's see if we can get add him there. Let's, what do these divisions look like as in their template? Okay. we go. That. See, I don't know if they're going to send back our current army or add to it. Quite honestly, I've never done this. Sent a second group of volunteers. Like this, so I don't know if it's going to add to it or send back the other ones. Well, so far they haven't sent back. Okay, so that's good. That's good, so we'll send more in. And yes, we did have a loss of a division, which of course is my fault, but let's keep developing our military factories. Here in the east, this is Moscow, and there. Now, let's not entirely forget, which we have not been developing well. Yeah, we'll do passive defense. Or intel, just because mostly we haven't been doing well because we've been focusing on Spain. No war here. Okay, so we have pocket defense out of supply. That would have been good for those troops. And supply grace. Okay. Yep, we're gonna push that a little faster. Okay. Secret trial of the generals. The Red Army has always been home to subversive elements ever since Trotsky himself was Commissar of War. Documents acquired by the NKVD have implicated several high-ranking officers as not only traitors but spies. Mikhail Tukhachevsky is among the most prominent of the suspects and one Stalin is keen to get rid of. Meanwhile, the Navy's frequent contact with foreigners has led to many of them being arrested as well. Although there are documents from our enemies proving their guilt, there is no telling if they fabricated them or if they were given false information by those who wanted to purge in motion, wanted this purge in motion to begin. Yeah, Stalin was very worried about any Soviet citizen who had contacts outside of the Soviet Union. I think it goes to his paranoia. I think it goes also to the realities of the world that, how do I put this? The Soviet system might, I'm not saying is, I'm saying might seem good in comparison to the Tsarist system that it replaced, particularly in regardings to the lower class. You know, and then seeming to be a fair system. I say might, because if we look at the Holodomor in Ukraine and other chaotic situations, and I mean chaotic politically, I mean chaotic as in, which is part of the reason for the Holodomor, not the only reason, but food delivery systems that were, hey, this is, who is this here? Field Marshal. Okay, here's Mikhail Tukhachevsky, and there he is there. Okay, cool. And I don't know these people well. I mean, as in to normally recognize them. Marshal Zhukov, who will later be a marshal here. No, this is not Zhukov. Wow. look similar to Zhukov. Maybe all Russians look like. No, I know they don't. But sorry, I'll get to the chat in a moment. Is that there were there were a lot of people who knew their jobs well in Tsarist Russia, and not all, but a lot of these professional people are eliminated, and then some of that means killed, some of that means put in various gulags or driven into exile. So the people who, shall we say, knew how to run the railroads, sometimes literally the railroads, but you get the idea, know how to run the system. Bureaucrats, how much we may hate them, they're actually fairly good at being bureaucrats, and to run any large systems. Yeah, this is just a base game. Running any sort of large systems, you need a certain level of bureaucrats. They're also a problem, but they're sort of a necessary evil, if you will. So we, see the situation that I'm trying to think of this as I'm speaking. We might have the appearance that, the things are a little better now under the Soviet than they were under the Tsar. But also you have a feeling during the Civil War, somewhat now, in the interwar period, and then definitely during the Great Patriotic War, of we're all in this together. This is all a national mobilization for bettering Russia, and I'm using like that term specifically as opposed to bettering the Soviet Union. And you do have that kind of feeling, and it's sort of us together as opposed to us versus them, the elites or something. So you may have that going within Soviet Russia. And again, I'll say I don't know a lot about it, and a lot of it is just because Cyrillic writing and all that stuff is somewhat impenetrable to me, and some of it is just I haven't read a lot about it. Just how effective internally the propaganda machine is, but I know it's there. And it must be reasonably effective in that there isn't a serious counter-revolution going on. Stalin definitely comes to power ultimately, I would say, by sort of palace infighting kind of, power plays and that stuff. So that's going on. And, well, by the end of all these show trials, he's really locked down his power. And we could talk about who might replace him. And there's, possibilities. But so, there is that, but it's, but general Soviet propaganda is working. But what the real problem is once it meets the reality of the rest of the world. Sure, you have Spain, who's going from a very agrarian system with a ancient landowning class that just as incapable, I would say, more than anything else, than dealing with the modernization of the world around them. And how do I put this? There is absolutely nothing wrong with the idea of an individual or a corporation or anything owning massive areas of land and then hiring, if you will, workers to work on that land. No one has a right to, well, I work this farm, it's my land, it's my right to be here. No, you have no right. There's absolutely no right to this. Now, that doesn't take into account old social contracts, because the old social contracts, including, I'm not an expert on medieval Spain, but I'm, knowledgeable in more Britain, France, that area. The peasants had, as part of their social contract, rights to certain parts of the land. There are still a few areas, very small in the overall, in Britain that are still run on the feudal system where I don't know. Let's just say that this is the overall area farm. One guy will own a strip of land here, or have rights to a strip of land here, have rights to a strip of land over here, 2 strips of land here and a strip of land over here. The reason it's all sort of divided up is some of this is good land, some of this is bad land, whatever, and it's all sort of divided up feudally, and they still sort of like every year or every few years sort of mark out this area in this feudal thing, as opposed to just, this is farm 1, farm 2, farm 3, farm 4. So when you're talking about the transition between stages of feudalism in Britain through its enclosure acts and other things, transitions from, at least most of it, 99% of it, land ownership, from a proper feudalistic to through the enclosure acts. Now, some of these going on, you now have, as transitioning over, it's no longer the proper traditional feudal system, but you're now paying rents, which may be paid in kind, as in part of your crops, to the overall landlord. So you do have a long-standing multi-generational right to this land. And so if you have that sort of contract, and that is a shared collective ownership of that part of the land, and we definitely see, and I know in Scottish cases where you had that, but because of the Hanoverian monarchy and the parliamentary rule in Britain, you now move over from a traditional Gaelic collective ownership of the clan's land over to a more Norman land ownership that then moves into a more direct, more modern ownership. So people just get dispossessed of their land through this sort of transitioning through systems. And this is dispossessed in the 18th through the 19th century entirely. So you have, I know this is a long sociological talk, sorry about that, but you have this transitioning over, and I don't know the land ownership rights, but you definitely have the situation where in Spain you have the grandees, the big, huge landowners. And again, I don't know the social contract rights of the individual that are laboring on the land, because I was going to say farm, but it might be other sorts of organizations. But just because they're laboring on it doesn't mean that they own it. But if there is a social contract pre-existing in which they have a certain set of rights, and again going back to like a second. To the Doomsday Book, in Britain you have the idea of a serf who has rights to a part of the land, but he's tied to that land, meaning this is, sort of what, 1070, 1080, I don't know. The Doomsday Book is after the 1066, which is the Norman, the Hastings year, but the Doomsday Book. So, and they go and categorize it. So a serf is both legally tied to that bit of land, meaning he can't just go do something else legally. They do at times, of course, leave, but he also can't be dispossessed of without specific cause, criminal or type cause of the land. So that's a serf. And then you go back again to the Doomsday Book, is what is called the villain, which is not a bad guy in that language of the use, but simply an local, unattached person to any land. Basically what we would see as a day laborer. Harvest season, yeah, he's out harvesting grain. Or planting season, he's out planting. Other seasons, oh, you need help with building your house, an extra set of hands, you're hiring him. The blacksmith kind of thing needs a little bit of help in the smithy, he's hiring. He's an odd job kind of guy. He has, he's a noted member of the community. He's not just a wandering, from community to community. He's part of the community, but he has no rights to any land. He has no rights to any farm or any sort of specific job. That would be a villain. So that's a laborer, and so we know this going back to the rise of the medieval period coming out of the Dark Ages. So these social contracts happen. So in Spain, we're seeing a situation different than, because it had yet hit Russia when the Russian Revolution happens in the total. You're seeing a situation in which, and I know we're talking about foreign contact, I still haven't gotten past it. The situation in which the agricultural laborers are no longer able to feed and house themselves effectively, or clothe themselves and their families. And I'm not going to blanket blame the landowners, because I know they're being put under a lot of pressure, including just simply modern industrial mechanization coming to farms and competition. So, but there is, sort of starvation in the sense that people don't have money to buy food, not necessarily that there isn't food in Spain. So when you compare the Soviet Union to what's going on in Spain, you might get, oh, well, the Soviet Union isn't good, but hey, it's dealing with the problem. But as time goes on, you're seeing France, Britain, including Nazi Germany and fascist Italy and other places, doing much better in comparison to the Soviet Union, dealing with modernization of society. And I will get to the chats, guys, in a moment, sorry. And so this is part of Stalin's problems with foreign contacts. Because part of it is, are they in contact with Trotsky? And Trotsky, quite honestly, I cannot tell you the ideological difference between a Stalinist and a Trotskyite, other than a Stalinist believes in a centralized Soviet or communist revolutionary authority that happens to currently be under Stalin, and that we must all follow whatever that program is. And I put that because Stalinists, partially through executions, take over basically all the communist parties in the world. They push out or execute or whatever, and by push out, maybe beat up enough until they leave any leadership of any sort of communist party anywhere else. The only sort of maybe exception is China, which partially that is because Stalin supports, especially at this time, revolutionary nationalist China, not communist China. He supports Chiang Kai-shek's group. So the whole Maoists, or those that become Maoists, are sort of outside of this system. Yes, I know a bit about this, but not in great detail. So the Stalinists are all, they're all for orthodoxy of the central system, and I don't think that it has a specific ideological viewpoint or program other than that we all follow the Internationale, the central, no deviation from central hierarchy is allowed. I don't know if there's, other than a simple different leader element of Trotsky, if Trotskyism is different. I do think, because of all of the abuses that the Soviet Union does, like the Holodomor, which we go to in the Gulag system, but a lot of people jump on board Trotsky as the good version of communism. Well, I don't support Stalin and all his evil, but Trotsky. And I'm thinking, I don't know that there's any decent evidence that if Trotsky won the leadership power system, that it would have been significantly different. I'm sure different leader, different, guys on the top, but I don't know that it would have been different. There's, the sort of Strasser effect of, and I can't remember, the two Strasser brothers. But, Strasserism, one of the Strasser brothers gets out and eventually ends up in Canada during the war as sort of looking to be the good National Socialism. Well, yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, they lose the power struggle with Hitler, but I don't know that it would have been better National Socialism than what Hitler did. It may have been different just because of different leadership there, and might have had different emphasis, and might not have been. I think it was anti-Semitic. Again, I don't know the details of Strasserism. I don't know that it had the Lebensraum, we got to push into the Soviet Union viewpoint, but it was still National Socialism in many ways. And I do think it was a bit more socialistic, as in Marxist socialistic, than National Socialistic, but it wasn't really communism either. Let's see, they're probably all correcting me here on chat. Okay, come back up a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay, hello, Spiraling 69, and no, I don't. I'll call you Omar. Why don't you annex the Baltic states? We haven't gotten there yet. At least not in my opinion. We have to wait for I presume the only way that they really were able to do the annexation of the Baltic states is with the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. We're not there yet. No mods. He also rounded up all the doctors. Well, see, that's the educated. The elite don't like the educated. And the extreme we see is Pol Pot in Cambodia. Anybody with any education is basically killed. Yeah, I'm sort of waiting for more of an update for either Black Ice or NC or something like that. Hello, Lion Luna. Hey, Matsov. Makes me think about Red Army, or the song The Red Army Blues. Brilliant song. Don't know the song, at least not that I can think of. Any please, thanks Arno. Yes, giving the stream thumbs up. World revolution versus communism in one state. Yeah, well, I don't know if you realize this, because most all of you are too young to have been alive then, but the Soviet Union under the oh boy, I always do this. For some reason, the way my brain works, it's one of my failings. The UN, the United Nations, under the United Nations, the Soviet Union had 3 votes because it insisted that it was representing more than one country. Russia only has 1 vote, and it only had 1 vote on the Security Council of the UN. Now, and so, it later grabs, hey, thanks for following. Oh, no hosting. Now, IKB, great. Grabs up and, the Soviet Union is the idea that it's the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and so it is a world revolution. So I would see it as a world revolution as opposed to a nationalistic thing, and it was going to have a single unitary state. But I don't think that any communist, well, I was going to say, I don't think any communist ideologue believes that there should be more than there should be national states, because that is contrary to communist ideology. Whether you believe that it would eventually be the withering away of the states because it becomes unnecessary as the new man. Go away, loud. engine that's setting off a couple of car alarms. The withering away of the state, or you believe, as I would, to be able to have communism, you must have heavy state control. This new man belief, communists, they may tell you they care. They don't effing care. They hate humanity. They want the new humanity, the new man, the rebuilt man, the new educated man. They hate what is existing now. They hate it with a burning passion. And they want the new man, the new society, made up of new people. Not genetically new, but new trained over in thoughts that behave differently. They hate the way humanity behaves. And so, I think with any communist ideology, they have to believe in a certain amount of central planning. And that would be universal central planning, just because if we're looking at a somewhat of an idealistic communist world, sure, you have some parts of the world that grow bananas. Well, you should centrally plan the shipment of bananas to parts of the world that don't have bananas, because we're all in it equal. We all get our one banana a month, because that's what we in a idealistic world, that everybody gets a banana a month. Even if you want a banana every day, nope, you get it once a month, because that's our system. So we can't have anybody having any extra bananas, and the world can only produce one banana per person per month, or some sort of thing. And I know I'm just illustrating the point here, and you get it. So the idea that no banana nation or group of banana growing nations has the right to those bananas more than somewhat, some in an Arctic area or in a desert area, or I don't know, just some area that can't grow bananas. So they don't have the rights they don't have the right to say what happens to the bananas grown in their region. So it must always be centralized planning. Now, I'm not saying you won't find National Socialism around in a Marxist viewpoint, because I firmly believe National Socialism of Germany, of Hitler, is a type of socialism. It is not Marxist socialism, but it is socialism. Very much so. But you can have a Marxist-based, maybe sort of a Chinese, I'm not talking modern Chinese government, which is more of a state capitalism verging on fascist thing that is still just sort of in the, would you say that communism was built on the backs of democracy thanks to Lend-Lease romance? No. Communism, well, one pre-exists before that, Michael Fox. So I think communism is an anti-democratic viewpoint, because it does not accept minority, and I don't mean as in race or other things, but minority viewpoints. Minority versus majority, and so predates that. And of course, other than Germany in World War I sending Lenin back, well, no, let me put this way. I don't know of any material outside support to the Reds in the Russian Civil War. I don't know of any. Now, maybe in the early days, before the collapse of Germany at the end of World War I, maybe Germany sent some support, materials, whether it mean food, bandages, weapons, munitions, maybe just captured Zara stuff. I turned off my RTX because I thought it was going to be a quiet day here, but now this motorcycle guy in my neighborhood is making noisy things. Sorry about that. Any material support to the Reds going there from the outside, and we see active support to the Whites, partially just simply that in Murmansk at the end of World War I, there was huge amounts of supplies worth millions of dollars in those days, maybe worth more, that they were trying to secure. In the earliest phases of it, there was still the World War I going on, but it continued on trying to support. And it moved into more political support for the whites around the edge. And so we see these sort of international coalition against the Reds. So that's only a World War II and post-World War II phenomenon, that it's democratic, though I would say it's more capitalistic, because it's economic. Democracy is not a political system. Democracy is a how would we say that? A government choosing system, a government conflict resolving system, between two or more conflicting ideas or leaderships or whatever, who you're voting for. Democracy, where capitalism is the economic system. So no, I would not put that it was built on it. Now, to the best of my knowledge, and this again is the best of my knowledge, and I am not a Soviet Union expert, and I want to say this, and I'm not even terribly knowledgeable on the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union made no appreciable technological advances, despite what they want to claim. Made no appreciable industrial advances without significant outside support. And I would even put this up into the at least through the sort of early 1950s with outside support, because you see them basically taking over the Tsarist industrial system. And I'm not saying they didn't build new factories after they take over from the Tsarist system, but they don't do new developments, of new things. Their wonderful tank production capability is based on, and I should look it all up, one of the major car factory developers for like Chrysler or Ford or whatever, because the American Depression, he gets permission from the American government to go set up a huge tractor factory in the Soviet Union along the American style. And my understanding is also as part of this thing, they send over a lot of the manufacturing equipment from America, because the companies that manufacture the machine tools don't have customers in America, but the Soviet Union was buying. So that whole thing gets set up because of contracts from the United States. And again, I could be very wrong on some details, so don't take this as definitive, but I do believe a lot of that. Then you have, before the National Socialists come to power in Germany, and even more so after the National Socialists come to power, you have a lot of industrial contacts between Germany and the Soviet Union. And I was talking not specifically about this, but about heavy steel manufacturing that Germany did during the lead up mainly to World War II, big steel rolling machines and whatever. The only way the Soviet Union was able to make, say, KV-1 and other steel rolled armor, turrets and things, not as opposed to cast armor, which is a different technology, was because Germany, or National Socialist Germany, in the mid to late 30s, sold the machinery to the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union did not make any more of that machinery until at least sometime after the World War II. So the ability to roll out the sort of horseshoe shaped parts of the turrets is only because Germany sells it to them. And I think Germany is thinking that they're mainly going to use these big machinery systems to make battleships, and they really didn't care because they didn't think it was going to be a threat. I do note that I think it's in 39, or is it in 40, Germany sells one of its I think it's a heavy cruiser that's partially completed to the Soviet Union, a partially completed cruiser. And I think I think at the time of the invasion, and I think at the time of sale, it only had one of its main of three planned turrets actually installed on the ship. The Soviets never got very far in producing or completing it out, but those main gun turrets were used, as, at least for a while, in the defense of Leningrad from the harbor. But it was never a seaworthy vessel. It was basically towed, up into there to be completed. So that was part of the second commercial treaties between, after Molotov-Ribbentrop, the initial ones. So Germany is allowing the Soviet Union to develop. And then, of course, we see the exploitation of Germany and other, Czechoslovakia and other places by Soviet conquest, taking a lot of industrial capacity back to Germany, as well as a lot of industrial talent, both developmental, the brain trust of Germany. Now, of course, there's, I guess, Operation Paperclip and maybe other ones by America and Britain and others to get German scientists and whatnot out. But the Soviets are going to the level of getting machinists and sort of lower level development people out. And this lasts well into the 50s in developing the situation for the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union is dependent upon exploitation for its growth, much more than any development of their own, in my opinion. I could be wrong on some of these details, but I think overall I'm right. Soviet Union force led to countless. Yeah. Oh well. Now, see, their forceful industrialization and building massive things like huge canal systems that were useful. I'm not saying that they didn't do that, but that's just lots of people out with shovels, and they did have some ability to make new factories. And I'm not saying they didn't build new factories. Yes, but they didn't build, new capabilities, new, bigger, huger steel rolling machines or bigger casting capabilities or other things in that nature, or developing highly efficient factories without significant importation of knowledge and equipment. The Tsar never wanted, once he had been deposed, he wanted to move to England and run a potato farm. Yeah, I don't know. I hear you, IKB. Leaders often dream, well, wouldn't it be easier, simpler to just go run a potato farm than all my headaches? But the choice between being butchered and running a potato farm, probably most leaders would pick running the potato farm. But I don't know if they really would have given that choice when they're still sort of somewhat stable on their things. But that's sort of, I would say, and again, I don't know Nicholas II's personal history well enough, but I think that's more just a wistful thought than anything else. He wanted to rule. He was just incompetent. I don't know that he was incompetent, Nicholas II. He definitely wasn't super competent in all fields, and he's dealing with an archaic system in the Tsarist system that he has inherited. And I know that I'm not an expert on Tsarist Russia either, but I do know that there are halting attempts at modernization in Russia, and it can go back to Peter the Great, which he did a great job of it, all things considered, in my opinion. But also you're looking at Catherine the Great, where she sort of sets up her sort of Polish province as some sort of ideal local farm, if you will, for trying out new ideas and thoughts, whether in farming or just in government. But there is massive amounts of resistance within the upper leaderships of the Russian society to any significant change to the whole system with the serfs. and everything. So you don't want to cause, and because if you look at like with Catherine the Great and others, there's constant rebellions. Now, often they're localized situations, but that could get out of control in Tsarist Russia, and some of them are different ethnic groups as they're moving east, or whether they're just different power brokers. And sometimes the rebellions are actually done in the name of, well, sometimes they're done in the name of a pretender. Well, I'm the rightful whoever that was disappeared, Tsar, whatever. And then other times they're actually doing it in the name of the monarch against what they see as a local corrupt person kind of thing. So there's conflicts going on anyways that they're worried about, maybe revolution, but not necessarily Marxist revolution, but just revolts. And so there's a lot of that going on, and including revolts by the elites. Well, the advice that he took is sort of being isolated in command there without the internet and able to really see what the rest of the world is doing. Duma was made to try and appease the peasants, but it wasn't made well. Everyone in power. Well, I don't know if peasants, but outside of the aristocracy, yes. Poorly constructed. It wasn't set up for so many people and several days. Oh yeah, there was that kind of stuff. Overly bound by his coronation oath to preserve the aristocracy. Or the autocracy, yes. IKB, there's a lot of that, and I do believe Nicholas, in his belief system, really, shall we say, believed in the divine right of kings or monarchs or whatever you want to call it, and took all of that seriously. I really do. That he you can, from a modernist standpoint, go, oh yeah, that's just silly religious belief. Okay, and you may be very justified in that kind of thing, but he really took all that seriously. So what choice will you make? Well, getting us back to the game. Okay. Must be tried and executed immediately. Remove theorist macaque, which grants all mass assault doctrines expert. Remove chief of army grants. Okay, remove these guys. Refuses but cannot be allowed to live. Remove. Well, basically, we're okay. Remove Timoshenko, Veshalov, Ivana. So basically, okay, this will lead to. So we're not going to go to the Civil War. Okay, I guess we're going to go with, well, I think we're actually using some of these people right now. Just like Petra. Yeah, we're going to get rid of our buddy here. We're decapitating our capabilities. Now, let's see. Inflexible old guard, inflexible strategist, politically connected, old guard, inflexible. Yeah, I don't know. Kulik, we'll put him in charge. Top option. Yep, we did that. And I'm sure we'll be encountering more trials, but it is incredibly damaging to the Soviet military, all of these actions. Incredibly damaging. We will probably, okay. Okay, good. We're gonna get these guys here in a meet. No. Cancel. We need to. I think we lost that general in. Okay, Gregory Zhukov. We'll use him here. Yep, just rush there, kill the pocket, kill the pocket, kill the pocket before the pocket gets out of control. There's no longer a pocket. Okay, arm or ground division, you go there to keep us from being flanked. No, 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 you keep going there, keep going there. Yep, go that way. Yeah, we had Barcelona, we had all that. You guys are... Well, I'm not going to say entirely pathetic necessarily, because there may be supply situations that... But maybe pathetically bad. Okay, well, we've expanded our... Okay, we have new Soviet scout planes, and we have heavy tanks. Oh, stop. I need to micromanage that because that's the type of person I am. Yeah, we'll go with scout plane production. We'll get some of those in production. Okay, guys, you attack here. I want to say this is the second. I can't recommend it. Very good. Thank you, IKB. Push there. Passive defense. Okay, so we are increasing our internal security operations. Okay, well, begin the missions. Loose ideology. I know, at least I believe they've changed some of the times to get some of the missions have been, you know, get them completed, have been shortened. Yeah, let's do psychological warfare. So it may be more useful to do some of this operations. Okay, well, and you march to there. Well, since they're fighting you, you move to there. We're still outside of Madrid. Okay, well. Okay. Support that attack. I know it's across the river and you've pushed into there. Good job. Okay, they've made it to there. You guys go to Granada. Well, let's take Seville and Cadiz. I don't know if this is good, but we're massively punching out a lot of their territory. Meaning I don't know, ultimately this will bring us victory or just cause problems for our... No longer effects of that, okay. Well, you march up and counterattack there. So keep our panzers free of moving. Okay, good. Cordobas are next. Well, let's circle around here. Okay, strike for Cadiz. Okay, well now that we've got all that happening, well, let's strike here. Let's strike there, keep these guys occupied. Okay, well, we're not going to build some 35Ts. That's just to get us eventually to, well, more shipping. Okay, yeah, we'll just do more merchant vessels for the moment, convoys. Psychological warfare. Okay, well, now let's see what we can. Yeah, let's see what we can do here in Spain. I don't know if this is going to be of anything useful, but let's send in Philby, a British turncoat trader. Make sure you go for the small encirclements, not the big ones. Well, that was not so much of an encirclement. That those moves was just more of a an attempt to destabilize any planning that they had. You're going to fall back to there. Because I can see you becoming isolated a little too easily. There we go. You fall back to here again. That was just mostly so that to disrupt their abilities. You fall back to here because you're being pocketed. Okay, more trials. After several rounds of arrest and trials, the Great Purge has weaved a narrative that has led up to this trial. Among the accused are not only old leaders like Nikolai Bakinin, but a number of diplomats, politicians, and military officials, and even many high-ranking NKVD officers. The charges are also more extensive than previously included decades-old plots to murder Soviet leaders and sell the Soviet Union to its enemies. The fact that the NKVD themselves are now among targets of this purge has in a sense brought the proceedings full circle. Threats and beatings have led many to confess to all charges, even the most outlandish ones, leading to defendants to face execution. The Air Force getting up easily. We suspected spies everywhere. Chief of the Navy, Chief of the Air Force, Chief of Military High Command. I guess once we're going down to crazy purges, we just have to keep them going. Ah, okay. This guy. Nikolai Yazov. He's in charge of the NKVD at this time. He gets a deputy. Is he here? Yeah, he gets a deputy, Bura, here. And Nikolai is Nikolai Yezhov is ordered to arrest Bira and I think have him executed. Well, let's see. He delays a bit, and Bira escapes to some other part of the Soviet Union, and then pleads through intermediaries with Stalin, and Stalin forgives him. And then eventually it is Bira going after Yezhov and getting rid of him. So if Nikolai had moved fast, he would not, well, maybe he would have been caught up anyways, but it's sort of switches over there. So yes, we're going to, those who live by the sword end up dying by the sword. And so now we can, well, we don't have enough points to move him in, but we should sort in a line by trying. Yeah, we probably have done this. Yes, it's not even, I don't even know that it's so much of a purity kind of thing like we're seeing a lot of leftist ideological types. Yeah, you've got to fall back to here. Our line, you're right, Harry, our lines are a bit long. The Munich Agreement. Now this Munich Agreement has several very fateful effects going forward from this. I will agree with those who say that Chamberlain, particularly Britain, believed, and is probably correct at this point, is not really effectively capable of prosecuting a war against Germany at this point. Czechoslovakia is already no longer able to defend itself once it gets outflanked, and this is after the agreement happens, but once it gets outflanked by Austria, being part of Germany. I mean, it is already flanked around by, you know, a north, a west, maybe sort of a south a bit here, but more of a north and west fronts. Now it has a full south, and they do start building some fortifications along here, along the old Austrian border, but they're just not really capable of defending it. It's where the defenses along here, you have the natural mountain defenses, which are significant, which Frederick the Great in his last military war campaign, the Potato War, look it up, ends up not doing well, trying to invade Bohemia at the time that was part of the Habsburg Empire. And so those natural defenses, along with Maginot Line style defenses, actually they are very much influenced, and France has sent over advisors to the Czechs to help them build their defenses. And given at particular stages, I think would have been significant at delaying German attacks had there been other pushes into Germany, which I don't know the French were going to be capable, either materially or emotionally, intellectually. You know, really the idea of going on the offensive. France's thinking is strategic defense. You know, they're very willing, and the idea of counterattacks or local thrusts. But France's thinking is moved way away, and de Gaulle is sort of in a minority in the idea of wanting, you know, strategic offense. So France's military thinking probably wouldn't have saved, even if Czechoslovakia wasn't outflanked. And France definitely materially can take on Germany in 1938 just fine. It was, again, intellectually, emotionally, and I don't, just how else to put, strategic, mind thinking or whatever, not really capable of it. But they were making more planes. They had, especially in 38, they had lots more planes, lots more artillery, lots more manpower that was trained and ready to go, just everything more of it. And it was relatively modern, especially for 1938 terms. See, France in 1940 is armed with, say, a 1936 or 1937 Army and Air Force. It's not armed with a 1940 Army and Air Force, which is a stage or two beyond. So, yes, they could have stood up to Hitler. They could have Hitler. Okay, again, I know some of you have watched my German series, and I'll go into it deeper there. Hitler actually wants a war with Czechoslovakia. He doesn't want peace. He wants a war with Czechoslovakia. He desperately does not want a war with France and Britain. Because again, he sees all of his problems. He doesn't see all of their problems, where they're seeing all of their problems, but not seeing all of Hitler's problems. France, Britain, what the difficulties the other side has. That's just the way things are. And you always, we don't have enough tanks. Well, may not realize that the enemy has even, so much fewer tanks. So yes, you have enough, but maybe not enough for what you want to do. So Hitler wants his war with Czechoslovakia. He wants to get the Munich Agreement that Britain and France will stay out of it. Well, the Czechs end up giving in, so Hitler's really frustrated. He doesn't get his war. That's why he starts pushing on Poland, because he wants a war with Poland, again, without France and Britain. He makes a mistake there and gets a world war. Okay, so that's some of the fateful decisions with Munich, but Munich also gets, which people not realized it at, well, they've not realized it, maybe how much. I mean, obviously the people have looked into it too, but realize how much Britain really does start rearmament campaigns, internally. Starts building up their Air Force, starts building up their Navy again, starts building up their army, training, putting budgets into it. They really realize that, as they see it, they were incapable of defending Czechoslovakia, and this is a problem. So Chamberlain really does push into that. Not maybe on the level that he should have, definitely not on the level that Churchill, had he been in charge of, would have pushed. And there's no surety that in approximately a year they'll be at war in late 1939. The war might be 5 years off or 10 years off or whatever. So you don't want... See, now this is the thing. You don't want to start a 1945 war, which peacetime development would have been slower than wartime development, with a 1940 army, whatever that may mean. You don't want everything out of date. And, the War of Bavarian Succession. Yes, that's it. But it's also known as the Potato War. Thank you, Arno. The potato concept comes into is there were no major battles in that campaign, and it was a lot of skirmish warfare. The Freikorps and the other light infantry units of both Prussia and Austria, often fighting over scavenging or foraging. That's the term. Foraging parties. And they were often going out foraging for potatoes to feed the advancing armies, and they were fighting each other basically over potatoes. American War of Independence is going on, just to give you a I think it's going on. Give you a time frame when all that's happening. And so you don't necessarily want to crash program building paying a huge offense for building a huge fighter force and then having to build it all over again 2 years from now just because of development. So you want to start rearming, but you don't want to overrush it. Now, of course, if you know that it's coming in a year, then of course to go all out. But You don't know that at this point. The other major consequence of the Munich Agreement is who is not there. And to give the story is you have Germany riling up propaganda and push to go after Czechoslovakia. You have, before Munich, you have a couple of other meetings, because Chamberlain's going back and forth with France and Britain and Hitler. Well, it's about ready to sort of go to war kind of thing, and Mussolini sort of steps in and sort of, come on guys, we can all work this out. And so it's really sort of Mussolini in the sort of setting up to the Munich conference. So you have Chamberlain, Daladier, Hitler, and Mussolini. Who's left out? Stalin. Now, this has massive consequences. Now, I don't know that even in France, it would be politically acceptable to call in Stalin for this thing. I think if, enough of the conservatives and even, the Laborites weren't pro-Stalin. They're not like modern labor people who are left-wing of Stalin and think Stalin didn't kill enough people. Jeremy Corbyn probably, in his heart of hearts thinks Stalin just should have killed more of the recalcitrant people and to make sure that the revolution survived. They weren't, they were left, but they weren't, communists. I mean, is anybody out there now or later, and probably should be ending this episode so it's gone on long enough, but anybody out there that wants to argue that, there were the Corbynites in the Labor Party, and they were, as in their own internal memos, were trying to weed out the Trotskyites in the Labor Party. So it was the Corbynites, modern day Stalinists, trying to weed out the Corbynites in the Labor Party. So anybody who wants to try to argue with me that modern day British Labor is not a Marxist Leninist party, come on, people. It is, but it ain't back then. It's definitely on a socialist spectrum, most assuredly, but it's often more just workers' rights kind of thing back then. So I don't, even within the Labor Party, even Fabian socialists, I don't know, would be, might lose it over it. And the Liberal Party, which still was the Liberal Party back then and not the Lib Dem nut jobs, going on. And you have the the conservatives would have just, enough of them would have just lost their shit had they invited Stalin into a meeting, because all of the history there with the Soviet Union. So I don't know that it would have been politically acceptable to have Stalin in. Now, had Hitler and had Mussolini invited him into the room, I don't know that they would have walked out, but it would have really had to have come from either Mussolini and or Hitler. I don't know to get in this, but this really, to Stalin, shows isolation of the Soviet Union in decision-making process of what's going on, major decisions in Europe, that he feels, rightly or wrongly, I'm not arguing the rightness of it, that he should be involved with. So this pushes Stalin into Hitler's camp. And you got to, again, see the overall pattern. You have the fairly strong alliance of Britain, France, and Italy. They're in it together. Mussolini comes to power. It's still Britain, France, and Italy, but Italy has this sort of new semi-revolutionary sort of political party. But hey, the conservatives are still sort of allowed into parliament, and hey, it's still the royal army, and they're still the king. This ain't too bad, and the Mussolini isn't really acting all that badly at this time. It isn't until 1935 and the invasion of Ethiopia does that alliance break. And it only starts moving Mussolini, because Mussolini in 1936, and it's I think January or February in 1936 when I know I said this, sets up the Three Powers Pact. It's a defensive alignment between Italy, Austria and Hungary against National Socialist Germany, explicitly against National Socialist Germany. So in the beginning of 1936, he is setting up a military alliance that's anti-Hitler. That doesn't sound like a good ally. So by isolating Italy because over Ethiopia, whether he should have been isolated over Ethiopia or not, changes things, which then allows him to go after Albania and other things and pushes him into Hitler's camp. Because of isolating Stalin from the Munich Agreement, you have Stalin going, that Ribbentrop guy here wants to do a deal for carving up territory. You know, Lithuania in the German sphere, Estonia, Latvia, Finland in the Soviet sphere, Poland divided. Now, after the war happens and Germany takes a lot more Poland more quickly than they think, they swap out basically this part of Poland here for Lithuania. That gets a swap, but originally Lithuania is going to be part of the German sphere in the original secret protocols of the Molotov Pact. I don't know if, I just don't quite honestly know right now if Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact mentions Romania, but of course they take the Bessarabia regions over here. Whatever this is, they're calling Southern Bessarabia. Bessarabia, Southern, yeah. They take this region here, of course. I don't know if that's in the Molotov Pact or not, but I definitely know the other ones were there and feel, areas of influence, whether it specifically states you get to take it or it's just your area of influence to decide. So, and again, also note that while Ribbentrop is in Moscow negotiating with Molotov, there is a British-French alliance up in, I believe it's Leningrad, negotiating with a different Soviet foreign diplomat, from the foreign ministry. I forget, maybe even Bira, I don't know. But one of them. So there's trying to get a Stalinistic, an alliance with Stalin that's anti-Hitler. They're going on simultaneously, and I think basically in secret from each other. I'm not saying the spies don't inform the governments, but I don't think publicly they know that the two missions are going on at the same time. And so they're trying to set this up, and the primary thing that Stalin asks of the Western Alliance, that the Western Alliance says no to, is hey, can I gobble up the Baltic states and Finland and whatnot, and I'll give you your alliance? And they go, no, we're not giving up anybody's territory. We just want to help stop Hitler. Well, of course, they're right in that, if you come on a good alliance with us, and you won't be invaded by Russia, because Russia won't be invaded by the Nazis because they can march into the Baltic states and Poland and help defend them, and you'll not have millions of Soviets dead. But so they're right about that, but they don't give what Stalin is looking for. What do you think behind the unchecked immigration into Europe? What is behind it? I don't think there is one thing behind it. There's all kinds of things behind it that comes to a perfect storm, if you will. From, hey, Europe looks to be a nicer place to live than my shithole country, to, hey, I don't have a job in my shithole country, I can get a job in Europe. To, hey, mullahs are saying, send your young men to Europe to convert it to Islam. To, hey, we need more workers in our country, because there is a situation of an elderly population and needing more young workers. Birth control is a wonderful thing, but you also need society set up to do reasonable replacement. You don't have to go, hey, we have 10 million people, we must have another 10 million people in the future. You might go, hey, okay, whatever country, going down to 8 million is fine, but you need to, you don't want to have it too rapid, so you have a huge number of old people, or you don't want to go too far, so populations can shift and change, but you need to do that thing, that in a well-managed level, to an ideological bent that, hey, the poor people of the world deserve what we have. So if they want to come, fine. They're just equal to us. We have equal responsibility. These are what people think in the West, that we have equal responsibility to our citizens as to a citizen of Burma. Are you crazy? Yes, they're crazy. They're crazy. I'm not saying that life isn't equally valuable. It's just a Belgian political person has primary responsibility to serve the people of Belgium, not the people of Burma. I'm trying to pick countries that aren't hot button issues with this, with some of the situations here. And they're, so they feel equally responsible for it. And which is crazy. You have to look after your own. And then there's also the, started by Soviet propaganda later on, but the guilt trip thing is we're doing really well, and there's these starving people out in Africa or wherever, we are the world, and we're guilty of whatever it is, maybe just guilty of success, but guilty of raping the world of resources, or guilty of our ancestors' crimes 3,000 years ago, or whatever it may be, feelings of guilt over it. All of these things are all coming together, dealing with that stuff. So I don't, you notice I've hit on many things, and any one of them wouldn't have been a problem, because, hey, we need a few more workers in our country. Yeah, that's probably not a problem. But it's all of these put together becomes the problem. And no, please note, Spiraling did say unchecked immigration into Europe, not that there's immigration into Europe. This is none of what I said is anti the idea of some immigration somewhere in some places in the world, whether it's Europe, the U.S., or China, or wherever. It's unchecked is the key there. And now it's the Blairites in labor who hate both the Trots and the Corbynistas. Okay, IKP. It would be funny if it wasn't happening to a major political party. Well, I still think it's funny, because I would love to see. I think Labor's going to crash and burn. I think Lib Dems have already crashed and burned. Because I remember, I guess it was still officially the Liberal Party. Maybe it was still the Liberal Democratic Party, or maybe it already changed its name over. But I remember, again, some people of the World War II generation in Scotland. Well, I just vote Liberal because I'm not a Tory really, and I'm definitely not a Labour type person. So I'm voting Liberal, which is sort of middle of the road. Well, they sort of peaked under the early era of boy, you guys have so many prime ministers. Just before what's her name, the conservative guy, who wasn't very conservative, the first conservative after Brown or whatever, I don't know, because they came into that brief coalition government. That was sort of the peak of the Liberals, of the Lib Dems. I want to say that as distinct from the old Liberal Party. And so they sort of peaked there, and then have just gone off into weird nuttiness. Scotland, the SNP has gone into its own form of weird nuttiness, but it is just because of national sentiment. They're will be a party for a while, but so Lib Dems aren't going to be the major alternative party, and I think Labour is just crashing and burning, and it's going to go away, and I think something new is going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be the Tories versus whatever the new right wing will be, or whatever. Yeah, David Cameron, that's right, and Nick Clegg. Yeah, that's right. That was. I would take it as sort of their women working doesn't help. I disagree with that. Promote larger families by giving tax breaks. Immigration is not needed. Yes, that's what I'm sort of the policies. And as hey, that's how you doing? Women in the workforce is a good and positive thing. The idea that women should primarily, their first their primary thing, or their first objective, is to be in the workforce, and only secondary objective is to have a family, is a bad thing. It's more of an emphasis that women in the workforce, because I think it is good to have women in the workforce, especially for a few years. I'm serious. I think most women in their lifetime should have a conventional job where they have to go, be at work at a particular time, go to work, do work for a BS boss, put up with that for a few years. But I don't think that should be the norm for their lives. I think having that experience, going through it, is an educational form of experience to then maybe better appreciate the idea of working in the home. Because my mother, well, she never had a 9-to-5 job. She did earn money doing things. She was a bit of an artist and would be paid for commissioned artwork, but that was always sort of spare time, free time type, and really quite, it did make money, but it was quite more of a hobby than anything else. But she worked in and around the home. Worked gardening. Some of the stuff gardening was unnecessary in that the garden looked just fine. She was just 15% flat tax, that would be great. Or a 15% flat sales tax would maybe be even better, but that's another whole story. So either income tax or sales tax, not both. It's an or. Would be great. So she worked, as well as worked doing, food preparation and all of those kinds of things. But she liked to work in the garden, and so unnecessary as into not just maintaining it where it is, but let's just rearrange it, let's just add to it, let's just have fun with it. But she worked, where my father had a job that paid, was able to do a nice middle class living standard. That is what I would look at as the ideal kind of thing. Okay, and once women start working in the workforce, labor supply rises quite a lot, and then wages stagnate. This forces households to have two incomes. Then you need to have wives working, so you get the snowball effect. Well, you see, I'm suggesting the idea of brief as in the overall time of their life, and working in the workforce, not as a half the population is male, so half the population works in the workforce, the other half doesn't, being the female half. I'm looking, and the other dichotomy is 100% of the male and females work, so it's doubling the labor in the workforce. I'm suggesting a 5 or 10% boost, in that 5 or 10% of their working life is to do that. Well, extreme feminism. If feminism is just general equal rights before the law, yeah, I'm all for that. If feminism is special rights and whatnot for women, then I have a problem with it. So a lot of the stuff going on. Well, with all of this stuff, we're going to end this episode. It's gone on way too long, though I've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron. Okay, we're going to continue this, guys. Don't worry. You don't have to go anywhere. I just want to end an episode. Okay, so no war this year then. Yes, no war this year then. Let's just save this in case I do something stupid. And we'll continue and make another episode. Having a job is a way to meet a husband and wife. Absolutely, IKB. That is a way to meet a spouse. And now AZADs, I wish we had more non-Western people here. I know in some cases I'm sure I'm off-putting, because I am a vehement pro-Western chauvinist, shall we say. I believe in Western societies are the best of what's available on the planet today. There may be something better coming someday. There may have been something better way in the past, but I think of what's available today, Western society is best. AZADs very well may disagree with me, but I definitely want to hear non-Western viewpoints. And so, yes, you have to put up with my pro-Western chauvinism, and I do have dislike either for significant aspects or more of some cultures. We can see in my opinion, great oppression of women in the Islamic world. And it's not just on a feminist standpoint. It's horrendous in my opinion. Now, not that they have to be Western, but they're going extremely far. Because I also know, I look at particularly places like Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, where women aren't that way, and it's not Western. So it's not a be like Western. No, and they have various social roles in the Far East, and even going way back in Middle Ages Japan. Obviously, it's not the way it is today, but isn't what it is. It was, at least never in my knowledge of Japanese history, what it is today in places like Saudi Arabia, the oppression level of women compared to men. Now, in feudalistic Japan, of course, there's very harsh sort of feudalism that is oppressive to men and women badly, and maybe women a bit more than men. But as the disparity between men and women in Saudi Arabia versus men and women of, say, 1400s Japan, women weren't nearly as oppressed in 1400s Japan as they are today in Saudi Arabia, in my opinion of it. So I like non-Western viewpoints here, and sometimes just to compare and contrast with the West. But I really do appreciate that. Given the fact that there aren't too many traditional women, you don't have much of a choice. Yeah, and that's partly, I think, with AZADs coming out, sort of maybe on the extreme of the term, but arranged marriages or marriages through social and family contacts that happen more in other parts of the world than happen in the West. So, yeah, there are other ways of organizing it up, most assuredly. I don't know that they're better. I don't necessarily think they're better, but there are other ways to do so. Okay, let's start another episode. Other than getting we have some command experience now that we've killed off most of our generals. I don't even know if I guess we have 100%, so let's, we'll do defensive doctrine for later use. Yeah, we'll go, no, we can't add more to him. Okay. He's already full up. Can we add more to you? Winter expert. No, we're not going to add any more. Okay. I don't know how much use continuing the Spanish Civil War is to us. I don't think we're going to see a Spanish Republic of the Republican side, so I don't know how much we should continue this, but let's see. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 with my continuing playthrough. Not of the Spanish Civil War, though we're intervening in it in the playthrough of the Soviet Union. And I was just talking to the online chat. I don't know how much we should really push for this, because even with our recent breakthrough here, that they've spammed in it, or not spammed in, but shifted a lot of their forces down here and are now not holding up here as well. That may have been a mistake on our part for doing that. Let's push here to counter that there. Hungary renounces the Treaty of Trianon. Okay. Yeah, it's historical and it's a loss. I really think having that anarchist faction or whatever happen really dooms the Republican cause. I don't know that it's at all historical. I mean that it should be at the level. I know there were very factions on the Republican side. That isn't a question in my mind. The question is it enough that it should be? And you fall back before you're cut off. Is it enough that it would be called a faction on its own? Okay, you come back to here. We don't want to be cut. We don't want to be pocketed there. The Italians and the Portuguese. Okay, well, let's try this again, but with 2 divisions. Oh, well, we have supply, at least for the moment. No, okay, we're gonna come to here. You guys, you come to here. You fall back. You fall back to here. Yeah, I know, I was gonna try to get that province too, but you guys, we're gonna reconnect these groups. Instead of trying to withdraw via the sea. Yeah, this may have been a complete disaster by my causing. Come on, you guys come here. The Great Purge. Okay, we've got the national focus, the Great Purge. Rehabilitate the military reorganization. KVD primacy, subversive operational slots. War, yeah, get SMERSH. Anti-capitalist diplomacy. Anti-fascist diplomacy. I like the reconcile with Japan, claiming Sikkim, expand the Red Fleet. Those all like sound sort of nice, but well, these aren't necessarily exclusive to each other. Okay, keep that in mind. But we do have a clock. Socialist realism, political power, aviation cult. I do want to develop some of these fortification lines. So let's do that. I think it will be helpful. Yeah, it doesn't look good. But I don't know that, well, I mean, sure, if we could win, that might be nice, but I don't know if the purpose is always to look good, but it's to get us some of this experience, which we've definitely used to our benefit to rush through some of the technical developments. Okay, I don't know of a good reason to expand our civil industry at this moment. I think its military is the key expansion here. Let's look at our current production and needs. We're just building a few scout planes is all, so that would be nice to expand that. Our light tanks, well, once we're no longer in the Civil War, we'll be catching up to our needs, but artillery, we could start doing some infantry divisions. I think we'll see about doing that. Anti-tank, good. Okay, let's look here. We have enough military. These are the good ones. So if we were to come here and do anti-tank support, okay, we need more than we have, but we might be able to build up to that. That would be good. And if we were to do that, support equipment, that would be good. Hey, we don't really have a production engineer company. Yeah, I think we want to do this. We're going to do all of this right now. I do want to add some more artillery here, but we'll save on that. Let's look at our armored forces. That's reasonably good for the moment. These would of course be nicer and would have helped in the Civil War here. Looks like we can do this as well, so we'll do this. Okay, so now to here, it's looking to be... Let's do some support equipment. I think we have the resources for that. Let's do 2 factories of that. Well, eventually, but we're going to continue to bravely fight this out. The Fourth International. A number of communist delegates from around the world meet in Paris today for a founding conference, laying the groundwork for what has been known as the Fourth International. Calls for its formation have existed for years, with supporters of Trotsky's theories taking the lead. Stalin has responded to the growing support for Trotskyism abroad by ordering additional assassinations. This is what I was talking about in the last episode, and increasing propaganda against his old rival. With the past purges of suspected Trotskyists in the high ranks, the Soviet military and leadership in recent memory, this is unlikely to be met with any resistance. Yes, Stalin definitely uses assassination to gain political control over the various communist parties around the world. And maybe I should say communist movements. Because it's not always legal parties. And to the point that this is important. Stalinists don't really care or interfere with, say, who's in power in other parties outside of the Soviet Union, and that if they are a socialist party, if they are a sort of liberal democratic or capitalist party, or if they're a fascist party, he is worried about, not that, I want to say this, not that in a long-term sense, way off in the future, he isn't concerned about it, but he is concerned about ideological purity, in this primarily in the sense of devotion to Stalinism, in support of Stalin. That is what he's worried about. He wants to maintain control of that, and he isn't trying to topple some sort of fascist government. Yeah, he's intervening in the Spanish Civil War. Why? I think because he wants to control the left in the Spanish Civil War, not so much that he feels he needs to win the Spanish Civil War to have Spain as part of, the Soviet Empire. He is more worried about if there is a left victory in the Spanish Civil War, and he sees that there are not just, oh, hey, we're a bit of a socialist party over here, or hey, we're sort of an anarchist. No, he sees all of these parties and the various radical movements as needing to be under his branch of Soviet control. So there's a lot of that going on with what and why Stalin is doing what he is doing. Okay, you push there down. Now that they've attacked and we're okay, yes, we have the infantry division defending our advance here. Well, we're advancing with the armor, defending with the... Now, part of the reason the AI is doing so badly, the successful purging, we've lost our supply connection, that sucks. In the wake of the formation of the Fourth International, the hunt for Trotsky supporters has intensified, and several people close to Stalin were executed. Left with no one but himself, Stalin has retreated to his mansion with every treacherous friend and family member finally dealt with, he can now find some rest and focus on bringing glory to the Soviet Union. Time to hang up the axe. Remove national spirit Trotskyist plots. Okay, so we've removed that. Spirit, I don't know, I don't remember what it was. Okay, you guys keep moving along with our armor as we move this way to get back into supply. Get our cutoff forces here. Okay, now that we've make sure we don't want to lose the division preferably. Oh, now we've oh, this is a complete mobile. Okay. Yes, you're back into supply briefly now here. Computing machines, yes. And maybe we're being a bit extravagant with some of that technological development. Okay, don't know if we need any of that. Let's come over here and do this. And do this. Okay, well, it looks like I've done a successful retreat. Tupolev bombers, very nice. Those are 39. We'll wait till 39 to push on that technology. Okay, well, we'll do radios. That's something the Soviets were definitely behind the curve on. Do we want to bring in Bira? Smooth talking charmer, trade deals. We don't want a democratic, elusive gentleman. I think we'll go with him because that will help with our spies and whatnot. Okay, well, we're going to see if we can kill this pocket. And you're going to support killing that pocket. Rush in there before they get a chance to withdraw or get better organized. There we go. Okay, you guys attack up. Oh, we have to come to there. Yeah, come to here. Well, we've lost the other armor division because I wasn't paying close enough attention. Outdated equipment and production. Yeah, we might as well swap over our interwar bombers. Yeah, this is tactical bomber. Yeah, there we go. Oh, what's IKB saying here? When you put ideological purity above actually winning, I guess. As some people would rather fight over the ashes. Yes, it seems right. We learn absolutely nothing from it. Well, way too many people learn too little from history, and that is one of my goals with my channel and my modding, is to teach historical lessons. It's not necessarily to teach history specifically, it's the lessons from history. And we'll talk another little thing here. lessons from history. Back to last episode, if you're watching this later on YouTube, talking about the Munich conference and excluding Stalin from it had serious consequences long term, and it did. It really built in this distrust of the West and the West's motives. Now, of course, everybody realizes that the West is anti-Soviet, but that one, the West is willing to sell out the Czechs for, even though they have agreements. That's part of the lesson he learns, which is, of course, a true lesson. But it's also, that, just that he's excluded and you don't get to say. Now, the other extreme, and we can see this today, is that under the Clinton administration, they bring in the World Trade Organization, the WTO, and a lot of you, are young enough. It's always been around. Yeah, I think it's like 1995 it's created. And it's under the Clinton administration that China gets into the WTO, the World Trade Organization. And China makes all kinds of promises. One of them, of course, and I don't know all of them, but one of them, of course, is to support copyright and patents of other nations, not allow blatant, which they had already been doing, blatant, whether piracy of Gucci purses or something, fake counterfeit products on the market, or just simply taking some technological development that's that's patented in some country and not paying the patent holder, money for its use, whether they would legally willing to, pay money payments for its use, or whether they just want to exclusively produce whatever it might be, even, that's whole other questions. And China's never, it promised that at its start and has never, we could attach him to here. Okay, help a little bit, but I know for losing divisions, we're not replacing them. Spain is doomed. But so the other extreme is bringing China into all these organizations, and including the Security Council of the UN. And maybe the security, just because they are such a big nation, should be on the Security Council of the UN, maybe. But we let them, because of that and other things, because of these things I was talking about, not just Security Council of the UN, let them pick who the World Health Organization leader is. Well, China's a corrupt place. China is not an ideological purity, so I know you sort of were talking about that system, but definitely favors people that favor communist parties around the world, but is not ideological pure, and they're corrupt. So anybody who China is going to push for a leadership role in a international organization should, purely because China's pushing should mean that all other nations should be against that candidate. I mean, my God, you fucking diplomats! We've got to get this guy in. Now, okay, diplomats from Ghana, or is it Ghana, or one of these nations down here within, BNN or wherever. China's given some naval vessels, and these are not like destroyers. These are like something more than a fast attack craft, but they're not quite what we would call ships, big boats, that are just sort of anti-piracy kind of anti-coastal piracy boats and other sorts of things. So China, is getting a lot of influence around in Africa, and sure, these diplomats, they're going to, he who's giving them the most benefits is going to get their support. But all of the, say, freaking European diplomats China's pushing for this person in charge of the WHO. Now, what does it really matter? They just deal with diseases in the third world, and we'll let China pick this one or whatever. But that should simply, to all of them, whatever faction, and I have no idea, but whatever faction the British were pushing, the French, the Germans, the Americans, the Canadians, the Japanese, the Australians. Australia is already owned by China. Sorry. Yeah, you do whatever. Australia does whatever China wants already. India, all these other nations should just go, oh, That's the Chinese candidate. Okay, well, we'll support anybody but him, maybe. I mean, we'll fight over it, but if it comes down to, even if that person has the most votes as an individual, not the most votes total, but the most votes compared to any other individual, we'll all get behind the other second most popular person out there, and which will, flood it, and then make sure that China doesn't have this huge influence over the WHO. And so, and we're not talking the good WHO, as in the WHO, the band, but, so we'll have, so we can look at the other extreme. So no, we shouldn't, because China's too big of a factor in the world, we shouldn't, put them behind a great wall and never talk to them and have them never have any say, because that is probably a bad lesson from history, to complete isolation, because that's denying the reality. Unless you really believe they are either a rogue state, we can say somebody like Iran, maybe, or you are willing to develop a coalition that's not necessarily going to invade, but really try to work and destabilize that country, say maybe like Iran or the Soviet Union prior to World War II, so that you look at it and that way that it's an active campaign, that it is an enemy country that maybe, you're not wanting to put large numbers of soldiers in and have huge numbers of people die, but you're actively campaigning to destabilize and destruct that country functionally. So unless that's the case, you need to acknowledge reality. China exists. China, has, and since it's joined the WTO, has become a massive industrial power. It's going to remain a massive industrial power, but maybe it shouldn't be the massive industrial power supplying the rest of the world its industrial needs. So things may need to change. And so these are some of the lessons from history that people don't seem to get. And I'm not talking about some factory worker, some farmer, some ad agency executive somewhere in the world that needs to know all this stuff. But our freaking diplomats, our freaking political leaders should have all these lessons down and known by heart, but they don't seem to freaking get it. I don't know what's going on. Okay. You have ice cream trucks? No, it's just sound popping off of my system. Oh, you're talking about ice cream trucks over in your house. Okay, I'm just reading some of the chat here. I live in New Jersey, right next to Philadelphia. Okay. The red Chinese pick, the Ethiopian Marxists. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it was an ideological pick. I think it was more of an acceptability pick for him, and a corruptibility. Hello, Ronster. Yes, we know. Mary, the PRC bad. ROC good. It said Winnie the Pooh and Free Hong Kong, yes. It's revolution of our time. That has meaning to the Chinese communists. Revolution of our time. That is, see, I don't know, Ari does it, resistance of our time about Hong Kong. No, it's Hong Kong, revolution of our time, because you talk about the communist revolution in China, the cultural revolution. Those are two different things. You have the communist coming power, then later you have the cultural revolution in China. Revolution of our time has a very specific and particularly Chinese mainland meaning, and there's very strong meaning with revolution of our time with Hong Kong. There is something going on about that. So you have that. And so it's just the history, that the lessons from history. And I don't care if somebody doesn't know about some battle of, military battle, or just a battle or campaign from the time of Louis XIV in France. If you don't want to know about that, that's fine. Even if you're even a military historian, because you can't know every campaign and every battle. But you need to know the lessons, the basic fundamental lessons that history teaches. And so, the whole Munich Agreement, and everything leading up to the Munich Agreement, including the Anschluss of Austria, and then the whole situation over Poland, all of that whole series of events, including, like I was talking about, the Soviet or Stalin's, it's more Stalin's reaction than Soviet reaction, because it's Stalin's reaction, not the Soviet system's reaction to the Munich conference. All of that needs to be, every single person who studies history and who's going to have a political job, whether that, and it should be a political job as a freaking city councilman somewhere in the world, to a president, should all know the lessons of the Munich conference. Now, if they get some dates wrong, they get just who was at what meetings, and that's fine, but they should know the damn lessons. And maybe, and some of the good lessons as well as the bad. Maybe if you have a really bad situation, appeasement, peace for our time, may be a necessary thing. But yeah, okay, we're going to give in on this. Start cranking out the machine guns. Start cranking out the bullets or the nuclear missiles or whatever it is. We ain't going to let this happen again. You know, some of these lessons, you know, if we're caught unsurprised, or not unsurprised, wow. If we're caught surprised somewhere, thank you, Ari. You really are trying today. So if you're caught surprised because of some development, yeah, the whole Munich thing should be a lesson that every person that has any political aspirations or job or anything should know well. And that is one of my sort of goals, objectives with my modding, with my channel. Oh, is IKB in the battle now with all this stuff? Yes, yes. I don't know if the Chinese are listening to us today. They do listen to me sometimes, I know. Yeah, well, yeah, I know Brett is the reason they listen to me, of course. Not that I'm influential or any sort of thing like that the Chinese are, you know, worried about what I say, or no, you defend the capital here. You guys fall back to here because you're losing the battle. You fall back to here again because you're losing the battle. And you fall back to here. Yeah, you fall back to there. I think we're looking at the end of the Chinese, or the Chinese, the Spanish Republic here. No, you can't retreat to there. Non-aggressive pact with Communist China. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, we can recruit another spy. That's right, because we got a new minister here, well groomed. A seducer. Okay. Now, again, I know this is somewhat random, or this is random. She would have been to me the seducer, and she's what not, but whatever. I find some of this stuff a bit funny. Someone should probably warn him not to watch the following episodes of the Soviet Union. Yeah, I don't. You know. Oh, well, the modern Chinese Communist Party doesn't like Russia or the Soviet Union. There was a lot of conflict between the Soviet Union and Red China. let alone, well, modern day Red China, but old Red China too. There was a lot of cooperation too, but there was a lot of conflict. Okay, we're done with the Spanish here. Infiltrate civilian administration. Let's do that. Let's see if we can take over the Spanish Republic or something. A little late now, I know. Doesn't like foxes, it seems. What are we doing with? I don't know what was. Red communist foxes, I guess. I don't know. Well, it looks like right now it's mostly us still fighting. And the Soviets still fighting here. Looks like they're going to take our last capital. Yep. Okay. Well, whatever's remaining of our forces is heading home. Well, that got us some command experience, air and army, which we spent a lot of it. Okay. Well, now. Let's see. Intelligent agency development. Still not very much of an expert on this. Well, we can do radio intercept. That might help with the coming Soviet invasion. And we're continuing to build our industry up in the rear. And now we're going to look at well, I think more support equipment would be in hey Chris, how you doing? Was the most equal after Mohaha? I'm scared. What are we talking? What's scary? Yeah, we're letting China also get too much influence in, say, our technology companies, particularly social media companies. I don't, I could say, yeah, there should be no, nothing like TikTok, which is owned by Tencent, I believe, or one of the Chinese megacorps. Should they not be allowed own something like that? I don't know. Maybe not. They definitely should be kept far, far away from any infrastructure, including, which maybe TikTok might be determinate, but not just physical infrastructure, application infrastructures going on. Okay, let's see. Not used to this mass mobilization. Deep battle doctrine. Well, that was sort of the theory that the Soviets were going for and did sort of, for a while, get rid of, and then I think go back to. So we'll go down deep battle doctrine. Now, do we have any decisions that we want to make? Okay, well, we could. Okay, well, expand aluminum plant in Leningrad, expand Kaminsky aluminum plant, develop ore mines near Kursk. Can you develop ore mines near Belgrade? Those seem awfully far to the west for me wanting to develop them. Where's Kaminsky? Isn't there a, yeah. States. Am I misspelling that? Okay, me and that's okay. Well, there's Kamchatka. Oh, maybe we need to look at not states, but there a province? Structure population. I don't know. Okay, I guess there isn't a. That's the bigger state. Yeah. Don't know where this is. No, I don't know the Soviet map that well unless there's a battle fought. But I'm figuring it's out in the west. I don't want to develop the west. Any company coming out of Red China should be considered compromised. Absolutely, IKB. So like Zoom, which is deeply embedded in communist China, and I believe Britain is. I think it's Britain is holding their cabinet meetings on Zoom now. So the communist China are getting all the cabinet meetings for coming out of Britain. I can't imagine the Britain and whatnot. Have you seen American Factory? I don't know. Oh, is that a mass mobilization is great? 5% yeah. You've seen American Factory? I don't know what you're talking about. Is that a national focus there? Well, good, Chris. I hope this helps. It's a film. No, I've not seen a film, American Factory. I don't know. Do we care about AA? We should start expanding our. Let's build some more artillery. Let's back over here. Artillery pieces, anti-tank, 5,000. We can use some more anti-tank. Well, we have. Let's look again at our. This is our primary division system here. We were to come over here and add infantry battalions, artillery, to everything out there. Okay. Yeah, that would be nice. That's getting to sort of to where I want this to be. Okay, so that will get that. Yeah, now we're down to 64. That's what I thought, maybe. So we're going to build, because we're going to take attrition losses, obviously. So we want to have artillery. Not just a good pool of artillery, but we want artillery in production to deal with that thing. It couldn't hurt even if it's just one factory. Well, yeah, I hear you, Arno, on that, but either we've got to set up a special division type for just a bit, or we've got to, because you don't really want to use something like that and then not have a reasonable amount of it in there. So let's. Well, see, I guess my point is I don't know if it's a luxury that we can afford, and I don't know how much. Do we concentrate more on fighter production and win enough of the airspace that way, and go, hey, well, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter whether we have. Okay, we're in January of 39, which means we can come over here and start this now. And we can we'll start this. We can, it doesn't. We don't need much AA because it does help the ground units a bit. But because we can control the air, I just don't know. Cost benefit. Used for garrison units? Only maybe. Builds American factory. GMAC. Chinese manager pretty much talked all the American workers into training for new managers and then sent over to Chinese workers and such. And the wages, safety, and hours worked all went down, way down, except the last one. Yeah, I think we can see the consequences of in Italy, and I don't know if we have any of our viewers from Italy right now that have faced the consequences recently, and lots of people dying and lots of other problems going on, particularly in northern Italy, where you had Chinese who were flush with money buy up a lot of Italian companies. And I think Italy, oh, good, foreign investment, that's nice. But the problem is one, they just want to have that made in Italy label and maybe taking over a somewhat known brand of something in Italy. And then they imported huge amounts of Chinese laborers into Italy. Well, yeah, okay, the Chinese laborers may buy food that's grown in Italy and may, sort of support the Italian economy more than those laborers doing the same work in China. But that doesn't necessarily really help the Chinese situation. So I totally get the European Union's concept of free movement of labor around within the EU for the EU members, but the idea that you allowed the importation of so many Chinese workers into these factories after the Chinese bought them up, I think that was stupid of politicians. I don't know who said that, spiraling. I'm not doubting you. I just have to sort of wonder. I think there's some elections coming up. I know some elections in places have been postponed, which in America, they canceled the primary for the Democratic primary for New York State, and the federal judge said, nope, you got to have the primary. But there are some regions that have been maybe very far left forever in Italy, since they're sort of, since shall we say, the downfall of Mussolini, that may just be voting for a not so left party. It's not saying that they're right wing, but they're sort of anti-immigration and maybe anti-EU type parties. Yeah, well, I think spiraling. There is, and somebody, I forget who, but one of the people I follow on Twitter, whose father, or no, whose uncle, I think it was, who's, a vet and all these other things, and is in a nursing home and has just gotten coronavirus, Chinese coronavirus. And, he said this is going to be, he's not going to make it. Now, I don't know the conditions that he's in, and maybe he's very sick and not going to make it, or maybe he just got it, and so they presume he's not going to make it, because some old people have definitely made it through it. But there is a lot to the idea that COVID might be, in some cases, just the straw that's breaking the camel's back, in that there is already these other cancer. But cancer plus COVID is more fatal than just cancer with chemotherapy and other things that you can get over in some cases. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I think some politicians are just doing this. Okay, Soviet volunteer group. With the war in China continuing, the Chinese Air Force has been stretched thin trying to defend airspace over China. Provided air support for the fighting corps. Chiang Kai-shek has launched a personal appeal to Joseph Stalin to send support in the form of combined forces of about 50 medium bombers and 100 fighters. This may prove useful opportunity to test our most modern equipment under combat conditions. Okay. Little history behind all this. Germany was one of the European powers that was trying to carve up China into really sort of exclusive economic zones and weren't really overly much trying to rule it beyond just wanting primarily economic access to it. France, Britain were the major players there. Eventually, China does sort of join that. I mean, not China. Excuse me, Japan trying to get economic zones as well. And that was the general European thought, who was going to get what areas. Now, this is outside of Macau, Hong Kong, and even the sort of international direct control of like the international zone and the French zone in Shanghai. There was both an international zone and a French zone. A lot of people liked using the French zone for mailing because if you mailed a letter, say, to Europe in the international zone, you had to pay that extra postage to get it from China to Europe. But if you went and mailed a letter in the French zone, France subsidized the mail cost from China to France. So it would only be the cost of mailing the letter from somewhere in France to, say, Germany or to, say, England or whatever. So the amount of stamps you had to put on it. And so it was incredibly cheaper to drop a letter, walk a few blocks, literally, because the zones actually touched each other, walk a few blocks into the French zone, put on French postage stamps and drop it into the mailbox there, or just use the post office or whatever to get it back, because France was subsidizing that bit of the mail out of the French. These are micro states in the sense of China. We're talking about, this area here and this area, big sort of zones of economic control. All the European nations wanted, and control is a bit large, but shall mainly say selling European goods into China and or buying stuff from China to send back to Europe. Not so much, as my understanding, dealing with the local economies, trying to mess with them, but they wanted this, and it was sort of a way to try to have peace, and so that the Europeans wouldn't go to war over these zones. Now, of course, the U.S. opposed this on two grounds, I think. One is their stated goal. They wanted free trade. They agreed with the Europeans that the rest of the world should be forced to trade with China, where China wanted none of this. China wanted no external trade, other than through, approved down here in Canton, through this sort of system. They wanted all foreign trade to come through here. That's what China wanted. Imperial China, I should maybe say. Because it does change under the nationalist governments later on. But this goes back to Imperial China. The U.S. wants to force China to be part of the free trade, but they want free trade everywhere by all powers. So part of it is ideological. Part of it is that they're sort of late to the party, I think, in that they, don't have a zone, but they're not really I don't think they really want a zone either. They just want to compete with everything everywhere. So the U.S. has sort of a mixed relation with China on that. Okay. Well, Germany ends up, because of that, and even before World War I starts, even though China does join World War I mostly to get the sort of, I guess it's mostly up in here, is sort of the German enclave, wanting to get that back. But even post that, they end up having a good relationship with Germany. And it starts with Weimar Germany, in which Germany is supplying some level of weaponry, but not a whole lot, but a larger element of trainers and support elements, which continues under the National Socialist government with Hitler. And this goes pretty well. And it is only after the the true outbreak, the post Marco Polo Bridge incident, war between. Because I say that because you sort of start with Japan moving into Manchukuo, which could be considered the start of the war with China there. But definitely the post Marco Polo Bridge, the Chinese have actually pushed the Japanese out. Bridge incident that Japan pushes Germany to remove its all of its advisors, and its military particularly, but also its political and economic advisors and industrial advisors. I did create a series of events that I removed because I forget all the reasons, but one is the sort of event leaving that is I think they're standing up in a tower on the train station or whatever. So you have a sort of somewhat of an aerial view of a really long train, and at least one section of it has a really long swastika flag with a big swastika, but I think it's like a whole train car long of a thing. Of a flag there to be put in the center of this train, because it's getting ready to come out of, I don't know if it was Nanjing, this is I think before the Nanjing or some other place, and going to a like Shanghai or some port city that Japan is already sort of fighting in the area and didn't want to be strafed, because Japan didn't want to strafe a German chartered, at least train full of German soldiers and civilians. So just don't bomb this train, and that was sort of the main evacuation of the German technical support. So Germany had been the primary technical support, armament support into China. This has gone away. The replacement is the Soviet Union for them. This is, I've talked about before, how Stalin is more supportive of nationalist China, which, especially if you look at the nationalists in the 1920s, they're revolutionaries. I mean, they're still revolutionaries now, but they're not like the later communist cultural revolution wanting to burn down everything traditional China. No, but they are looking to the West for sort of revolutionary sentiment. But they're very even though they're looking towards the West, both the communists and the nationalists are both looking to the West for their sort of revolutionary sentiment. They're anti-Western involvement. And it's not just, because they're going after anything Western, including missionaries and other groups that may not support European domination within China. They're just anti-Western. This is moderated by the 1930s. Partially out of success and wanting to see economic success. So they realized, particularly places like Shanghai and Canton down here outside of Hong Kong and Macau, are actually very good economic benefits. Now, Chiang Kai-shek definitely wants deep China. He resents the fact that they're doing the, still into this time period, still into 1941, there foreign naval gunboats are coming up and down major Chinese rivers and into some of these major lakes that are still influencing things. He radically resents that, but accepts it as sort of the price to pay even in the peacetime, because the economic benefits. Because Chiang Kai-shek definitely has the revolutionary fervor and the military ability to get rid of all of these foreign enclaves. That isn't the question. It's just, well, if he does that, then he loses a lot of trade benefits that these nations aren't going to be trading with him. He doesn't want to be treated like the Soviet Union's being treated at this time. Hey, James, good to have you here. So, you see, there's that sort of balancing act that Chiang Kai-shek does. So, and it's moderated, and Chiang Kai-shek isn't one of the more revolutionary of the revolutionary nationalists. So that's sort of what's going on with all of this here. The Germans have to pull out. The war's going on. They start bringing in like T-26 Soviet light tanks, bringing in a significant Soviet volunteer group. Now that, at least personnel-wise, is withdrawn, I think, leaving all the equipment there, and no more support shows up once the German invasion starts in 41. And it's that that window in 41 after the German invasion starts, before the attack on Pearl Harbor, is when the American volunteer group gets set up and comes in to replace the Soviet volunteer group. Anything like this? I see. Virtual Chinese territory. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we must support where we can air experience. No, we're going to do that. Don't see a downside to that. German right claims memo. Okay. Where, okay, well, we have no divisions in training. We have a moderate, a lot of. Now, see, I see, 100,000 basically plus small arms, but I just wonder what we're going to start being faced in the grind with Germany. So that is good, but I think what we can do is start to recruit divisions, and let's just start them out in Moscow for the moment. Set location, Moscow. Okay, and that's again sort of what why we've increased the artillery. Looking at production, I'm wanting to do here. The Flying Tigers were good. I don't. They have a very good reputation. I don't want to downplay their reputation. They were good. I think part of their success, though, is they were unexpected. Not necessarily because the Japanese knew that they were showing up, I'm sure, because they had decent intelligence going on. But I think their tactics and their sort of vigorous offensive operations going on surprised the Japanese a bit more than what they had seen before. Okay, talents of new officers. Our new officers are proving up to the task and are adopting to their new roles in military high commands. We're loyal officer corps in charge of our military. Joseph Stalin purge seems to have had some effect we hoped for. Red Army is regaining its power. Excellent. Officer. Okay, we're gonna. No, let's look. What do we have here? War propaganda against Japan. Not the one that oh no, this is popping up. Okay. We may do that. I just want to see before I have this dismissed what is the has it already been removed? Oh, officers purge, there we are. Okay, so officers purge, divisional organization, factory output, training time, max volunteer force divisions, enforced speech. Okay, yeah. Lowers penalty. I don't know how that looks. Maybe it's already lowered, or oh, we may need to bring this back out again. That's right. Sometimes, yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, I don't. Okay. are in 39, that's right. So we want to come over here. Right now, mostly we have enough, because mainly I do this for the resources, for gaining resources for Germany. Right now, construction speed, factory repair is nice, but it's not maybe as essential. I don't know resource-wise how much we're going to have problems with that, shall we say, compared to what I'm normally used to facing in Germany. Let's do more support equipment. Unifying card is kicked off. Yes, Greg Pappy Boynton, I've watched all the Black Sheep Squadron. I am aware of that. And his sort of military career ends in a Japanese prison of war camp, yes. No, of course he survives and continues on. Looking at airplanes here, because I think we're going to catch up to the support equipment fairly soon. We're doing decently on artillery, anti-tank. I think I want to do some more fighter production. Yeah, I'm still thinking about the anti-aircraft role, but it seems like we only have one factory right now, so we'll do 2 factories once we get the second one built. For fighter production, we're not having the clock on. I do understand, and it is a concern for me. Sometimes we need to keep the clock moving a bit faster, but I want to sometimes monologue or sometimes dialogue with your input on topics, and I don't want to have the pressure of worrying about clicking things even in peacetime. Here's an interesting question for anyone in chat of either YouTube or Twitch, because I'm watching both chats. What German Soviet, especially, and this even if you haven't played Third Reich events, but even more so if you played Third Reich events, what Soviet, we can't get these to pop up and pause, I wish you could. What Soviet-German interactions are you either most interested in, want to know more about, or maybe have heard of that could make an interesting event? Soviet-German, because I'm still thinking in terms of Third Reich events, not Joseph Stalin's events or whatever it is, Uncle Joe's events. Or hello, Fire Engine, and no, I don't have RTX voice on right now. Okay. So what German Soviet things that you either heard of, interested in knowing more about? Meeting the German Soviet officers after the fall of Poland. Okay, that could be interesting. I definitely have some photos of that. There's definitely there in Brest-Litovsk, sort of where the official meeting and little parade that was held. And that's something I could code. Some of these things are hard to code because players don't always follow history exactly, which I'm not suggesting they should, but you need to sort of take that. You don't want to have an event that happens that's, German and Soviet officers meet on the, Polish border, when in in reality, they're at war with each other in the game, you know, or whatever. How about the last train to cross over to Germany before the war kicks off? That's interesting, Spiling. I don't know. Yeah, don't know about that one because yes, you can always do that, but I don't know how interesting that would be because obviously players will start the war at different times. I don't know. That's an interesting thing, but I don't know how to oil supply. Yeah, no, they were definitely sending oil and that kind of stuff over. Okay, as part of the maintaining the demarcation line on the border between us and Japan, a work party was sent to check on the demarcation markers near Lake Kasan. When approaching the border, the work party was taken under fire by local Japanese outposts. We have lodged a formal diplomatic protest, but the Japanese ambassador maintains the work party was sent to move the markers to allow us to claim more territory. The Japanese have assured us that they will respect the border, but will not allow any tampering. Unacceptable. Okay, so our propaganda efforts. And this is where what is no divisions? Why is there a division? No divisions. I don't know. The fate of Czechoslovakia. Okay, well. We have some events coming for fortification. So, and I want to see what those do before I start building fortifications. So I think we're going to continue our industrial push here. Well, time for the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Well, that's more later. 39, but they may be sending it to us. We'll see. Zog submits to Italy. But I think right now we're going to end this episode, not the live stream, but this episode. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking the video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and I love hearing your questions, comments, tips. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron. Yeah, we're going to keep this to one, but I just want to break up the things. How about German Soviets help each other out with the tanks? Yeah, that was going on a little bit, mostly earlier, but that could be an interesting topic, Arno. I think that was still going on a bit. Rolled out at the Brest Fortress. That's another very good one. Still to this day, why didn't the Brits and the rest of the world did not condemn the Russians for attacking Poland and Finland? One, I don't know if that's a true statement, James. I don't have any specific statements in mind, but I'm definitely picturing some, and I've collected some, photos of headlines and whatnot talking about the Soviets invade Poland and sort of condemning it. And I think some of the newspaper articles, there is condemnation by, shall we say, world leaders, maybe just like the, foreign minister or the Secretary of State in the American case of it. I don't know if there's formal. There was definitely condemnation of that going on. So I don't know if that's a correct thing. There's definitely, obviously, they didn't go to war over it. And of course, Britain and France was in no place to add another major power to the war that they found themselves in. But I think there was condemnation there. Now, the Brest-Litovsk fortress, that would be an interesting thing. Now, coding it. Because the little bit of the fortress itself holds out a lot longer than, shall we say, the province holds out. That could be an interesting thing. Get a notification once you take Brest-Litovsk. still say that there's still a garrison still holding out in the fortress. And okay, so you get a notification of what's holding out in the fortress, that there's still a holdout garrison. You know, you've secured the city, you've secured the province, shall we say, and your armies are marching east, because otherwise it's not a story. The story is sort of after the holdout. What should be the players, if any, choice at that point? You know what? You know, send in the order attacks. You know, or should it be a choice between attacks and just starve them out? Or I don't know. What would be the choice for an event there? Okay, Britain goes to war, Germany or Poland, but lets the Soviets have it after the war. Well, it's that's what I'm sort of thinking is event ideas. What to do for? Because I'm going to develop more of Third Reich event. Hey, USA man, good to have you here. What did I miss? Oh, the end of the Spanish Civil War. We lost. Well, the communists lost. And so wanting to know more about and putting that in. That would be interesting. Because I don't remember, but it's like 30 days or something like that or more they held out there. For event images, that's fairly easy. Just picture of the fort and whatnot. But yes, we're getting close to that fateful time. And yes, I'm planning on doing the what do we have here coming up? Decisions, border, provocation, Japanese border. Okay, oh, we forgot to start the next episode. Started playing. I'll wait for this fire truck going back by without its sirens on. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4, just the base game, well, with Law Resistance and all the other DLCs. Playing the Soviet Union, so we're looking at that. Now we have set up a spy network out here in Spain, in national Spain, so I don't know, do we want to capture the cipher, infiltrate? Send these to not the one that has the network there. Prepare. Okay. Anti-fascist diplomacy, very good. Border conflicts. Oh, down here. Oh, we have border conflicts down here. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, let's... Far Eastern fortifications. That looks like a plan. Okay, let's see how this works out. He's sending in forces. see if we move the armor division down. It looks like our armor division is not getting involved. Japanese victory at Lake Khasan. We must prepare an appropriate response. Okay, wow, that was fun. Okay, we're now producing a little more fighters. Got scout planes, got tactical bombers. I think more fighters. But, which means that we're really now looking at needing to trade for more rubber. Sort of exhausted our... Let's do United Kingdom. We may do so. Steal some blueprints there, Arno. We'll see about that. I've not yet set up a network to properly do that. So I don't know if we are. Not that I don't want to. I don't necessarily... I want to also experience prepared. Okay, commence. Concentrated in industry. Do we even go down the radar path? I don't know. I don't know if that's a luxury that we do or don't have. Let's improve our artillery. I think if I was going to do tech stealing, I needed to focus on another country other than Spain. PPSH 41. Wasn't that a 1941 tech? But okay. How about the Germans hitting all of the Soviet airfields? Opening the Barbarossa. Okay, yeah, now... send some tank boys to China. That's maybe an idea. Trying to think about that. So you're what would be the effect of because I'm not going to, at least in Hearts of Iron 3, that's what I'm thinking of, effectively just remove the Soviet Air Force or parts of it. So it needs to have an effect. So would I just would I just make bomb air forces or air bases so that they're less built up? You know, so they have less levels, so they don't, you know, can't put as many units on them? Or do you try to just make air power a little less effective or something? That's interesting. Sending an attaché to China. Attaché sounds better than sending our troops. I don't know. Let's see. Let's just quickly look. Diplomacy. Send volunteers. Well, we might be able to send that, but I don't want to send that guy's force that's already sort of sitting there. Yeah, attaché. We have the diplomatic. It will accept. Let's send an attaché. There we go. Well, for the moment, with the political power, I don't want to send more attaches to that theater. Let's look at our intelligence agencies. Radio interception. We haven't even got that done. I don't know that we're going to do blueprint stealing this playthrough. I like it too, Arno, but let's do radio. I guess we should probably go over to war economy right now instead of this. So let's do that. That should help our economic development out considerably. Let's put these are actual radars, but let's put one here in Moscow. I often put them on the border to look into other countries, but I figure we're going to be here on the defensive. Wow, it's going to be lots of factories going away from. What's going on? Ukraine accepts the pyramids. Yeah, well, maybe even criticism. Yeah, the Ukrainians did for a while until they got screwed over by the Germans too. We already have. Oh, okay. See, Ari has not played Third Reich events, so he doesn't know what's in it. So he doesn't see all of the stuff that we already cover there. Okay, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The German Foreign Ministry has proposed a non-aggression pact between our two nations. This treaty will greatly increase our mutual trade, and additional secret protocols suggest the division of Eastern Europe into German and Soviet spheres. While the fascists in Berlin may not be trustworthy, this pact will allow us to deal with Finland, the Baltic states, and Romania without fear of outside interference. Yeah, I wasn't sure about Romania in this. Eastern territories of Poland will also befall. I think it should be to us in the event of a Polish collapse. Now I'm a little more picky for a company versus a mod in that. Okay, sign the treaty, gain claims there. No deals. That, of course, is the smart path, but we're going to take the historical path. Italy joins the Axis. Good night, AZADs. Thanks for being here. Now that we have that, I don't think we get to. Okay. Claims on the Baltics, improve the Stalin line. Okay, so this is still coming. And we're doing the Far Eastern, which is coming pretty quick, but I know that you have the, it's more over here is the Kalk and Gaul, real sort of battles with the Japanese. I don't think the Japanese push much over here by Vladivostok. Now, I say that there were hundreds, literally, conflicts between Soviet, Mongol, various Chinese groups by both Japanese and Manchukuo, and this Benguko is sort of Japanese occupied Mongolia, or puppet state, I should maybe say, or whatever. But and the Manchukuo and forces were also operating in here. There's hundreds of skirmishes, shall we say, not things that like this sort of happened on divisional scale. I'm talking various patrols of, I don't know, 50 to 200 men on a side that sort of encounter somebody, and they think they're in their own territory, and they may think they're well in their own territory, and they encountered some other armed forces, so shots start ringing out. Now, there's not, and they say like because the border markers, these are, and I don't specifically know in any one area, but these are basically some sort of post put into the ground. Some are more formal, big monument kind of things. Others are just maybe literally a wooden post driven into the ground. And along some of these border areas, now some of this is along the river, and the river shifts and changes, and that causes some other conflict. But some of these are not clear. Now, there's a lot more of them going on between, shall we say, Mongol/Chinese territory versus the Japanese/Manchukuo territory, but they're happening all around all the time. Mostly there's a few shots, maybe a few people get, hit with bullets, whether they die or just wounded or not, I don't know. But these are, firefights are going on all the time. And a bunch of the time, one or both, maybe both, well, I guess theoretically, even if both sides weren't going to be in other people's territory, just units aren't precisely knowing where they are. They may have a compass and a kind of a map, but they don't have GPS. They're sort of, and it's not like well demarcated along a river, but this river is sort of has multiple. It's a sort of wide wandering affair that's sort of more like this, in that there's sandbars and that where is the boundary, and there's multiple sort of streams, if you will, in some of this, and so you might think, oh, they're in our territory, let's shoot at them, and each side. So it's not necessarily being aggressive. It's just units that are back and forth. Hey, thanks. How you doing? Again, we're calling you Monk because I don't quite get all of the Cyrillic. Can you show us your ships in Vladivostok? What can they do? Oh, well, I don't know. Yes, I can send them here. Do we have a naval officer that we want to put in charge of these guys out here? He's a submariner. He's a ground pounding shore bombardment. Okay, well, we have submarines and that. So we'll see about if we want to do this. But basically, we have 15 subs, 2 destroyers out here. That is it. And that may be, don't know if that's useless. I don't know if that's useful or useless. So I'm hoping to keep the Soviets out of war from Japan. We have our fleet here, which I'm going to think about getting it out of here because I don't know that fighting in the Baltic state or in the Baltic Sea is useful. We have up here some destroyers, and then we have the Black Sea fleet down here. Now this is a much more potentially useful, because if we can hold even just one port down here, help us control operations in here. Ah, yes, VE Day in Russia, the 9th. Yes, well-deserved victory. I hope you're all having a good day. And I totally understand about it, thinking of it as a great patriotic war. Okay. The fighters are starting to build up a few, but not many. So let's throw another couple of factories on the fighter pile here. Yeah, I think, I don't know how much good, I think submarines are going to be a little more useful out of Murmansk and or Archangel back here. I'm hoping we'll be able to at least keep Archangel. I don't know how hard this will be. Maybe we'll just get overrun. But, well, let's continue to improve our intelligence agencies. We can do machine-assisted decryption. Yeah, that's sort of what we were going for. And so I'm thinking a lot of the subs to get out and up here to do commerce rating out there, maybe, and maybe putting the Baltic Fleet in the Black Sea. I don't know. I really don't. They can lay mines, for example. Well, do any of ours have mine laying capability? I want a nice picture of mine laying. No, these don't seem to have mine laying. Okay, there's a type 2 here. Well, these do have mine laying. Okay, so some do. The L series here, the 2. Okay, well, we have 3 mine laying subs. That could be useful. Okay, currently we have 35 convoys. 135, I should say, available. So we probably have enough convoys now. So let's just go plus to finish out that one. Now that's an idea. I like the idea of mine laying submarines. Which type do we have here that are mine laying? No mine laying. Okay, so if we were to put well, do we have enough to create a variant mine laying there? I don't think so. We haven't really done any research, and I think we're doing the correct research. So let's put that into practice there. Put that into production once we get the last convoy completed there, and then I'll shift it over to there. I like that idea of, okay, yeah, there we go, of mine laying maybe the hell out of there, and maybe some in the Black Sea. Wow, do they have more submarines than in the real world Russia? I do not know. Hello, Rhaegar. I do not. I do know the Russians did have a bunch of submarines. I did not build any, and actually built, well, no, I don't know. I think I stopped most of the production lines, so I don't think I built more than was queued up by much. So I don't know. I just don't know enough about it. Okay, Operation Zent, which requires for Eastern. Okay, this. At least 200 stored in a stockpile focus will there. Okay, yeah, Operation Zent is part of the Soviet aid to nationalist China. That's what overall I think it was generally called. So we're going to do that since that is a thing to do now. I do like it. Okay, let's build. We may be able to hold Leningrad, so let's build a. That's more of a radar interception tab or tower there. See, that's why I hate this. I hate the state mechanic. I just vehemently hate the state mechanic. It can be corrected. Now, it can be modded so that all state functions go to the provincial level. And that's what I would do. Because obviously you can have like the state of Gibraltar, which is also a single province. Because if I'm going to build radar, I want to put it, down here in Vladivostok, at least, if not, down here to better look out and see what's going on with the Japanese than centered back here. That's just, yeah, part of my frustration with it, along with other things. Yeah, I'm a little worried about giving the radar to the Germans, like in Crimea, to have it overrun. Maybe I'm being a little too paranoid, but I don't think the Germans are going to build there. And so if I build it there, then it gets overrun, and then the Germans have benefit of it. Okay, great radar battle. So you're right about the mechanic. Yeah, it's part of the mechanic, and I can see the best justification is they decided, quote unquote, energy in Hearts of Iron 3 was meant to be the main thing, limiting the amount of ICs that you can build. They decided to go over to a slot system for Hearts of Iron 4, and I generally agree with that. And what I would do is just a lot of random provinces have no slots for ICs of any sort. They might have, you'd be able to build, you just do it, slots for fortifications or something, sure, but none of these sort of things here. And just, places like Essen and Dortmund and many of the other areas, cities, to allow it, because they didn't want super spam and Slovakia to overdo it. And so just most of these places, you Zelnina or whatever might have one, and Bratislava, I don't, would have the rest for whatever 25 here for this province. So maybe one or two up in Zelina, and one here, and one here, and then the rest all in here, or something like that, just so that you do have a maximum amount in an area. And then, because you can easily have the idea of 0 slots available for any industrial capacity in Gibraltar, so you just do that in other areas. May mean a little more work, but it works out better, I think. Earth curvature is more of a thing in real warfare. Okay. How do I put this? Partially it is the game mechanics, and partially it is a got another noisy vehicle going by. Part of it is the scale that the game is set at. You're absolutely right. Curvature of the Earth. Now, because of their air zones, and I have mixed feelings about air zones, I have less problems with the air zones than I do with the. Now, I still have great problems with the teleportation, zipping from air zone London to air zone Berlin without having to fly through the intermediate air zones. That's a serious problem. But just the concept of air zones, I have less problem with. I do think you should be able to. Well, I don't know, but I was thinking, being able to put air units in more than one air zone. Well, yes, no, there's arguments to be made. And so the idea of putting up, whether I put one, whether it's per state or just out here radar in Calais, put one there versus one in each province along here. I don't need the micromanaging of having to, build how many radar sections. Now, obviously, this is a super wide, British channel, just so that we can click on these, sea provinces better and whatnot. So there's reasons for that. This is a bad map. Good game playing reasons, in my opinion. Positive game playing reasons. I don't know if you quite need this middle channel going through it, but definitely each sort of border site sort of needs that. And to sort of look at, and these radars are also meant to be radio interception towers. Whether you should break them out or not is another question. So I'm generally supportive of the idea of radar, and that if you build up a, in one location, the big stack getting further out. So I'm generally in favor of it. Now, if you're talking overpower in their effects on combat, that's another question, and I'm not ready to prepared to answer whether I agree or disagree. So generally speaking, I think they're doing all right with radar. It's more of where you get to build it. And just think it's not one radar, it's a system of radar in an area. And even so, if you build radar level 4 in Calais instead of building, radar level 1 in Dunkirk, Calais, and Boulogne, and Dieppe, and whatever going on down along here, it sort of just equals out the same thing. And we all know that radar, and you're right, curvature of the Earth, the idea is that radar is picking up aircraft, because the British radar picked up aircraft that was taking up and forming formations over the Low Countries in this part of France, and getting ready to go bomb Britain. So they were getting warnings out over here. Obviously they weren't getting low flying aircraft over France from Britain. So yeah, was that kind of thing. My opinion, mechanic of air battles in HOI 3 is better because you can send planes to help the land battles as needed. I am more reconciled to the air battles. I do sort of like, if it wasn't for the teleportation thing, because you can specify what areas you are operating in for your air power, and you can attach air operation units to specific armies. So and I don't normally do this, so it's not something I do a lot of. Let's go back to the army here. Army viewpoint. Let's create an army here. Okay. And then let's come in here and this bomber group, you can attach them here. Select air wings to attach to this army. Okay, so now this air wing should support this army's operations. So whether this army here is a 4-division army or a 40-division army can affect how impact the air power is. So if you just have air power supporting these 4 divisions, and these 4 divisions are attacking one province, that is more or less, and we can talk about some of the details of it, but is more or less sort of achieving the same thing that you were doing in Hearts of Iron 3 with focusing your air power on attacking a specific unit. So you do have some of that. I'm not saying it's exactly the same or exactly as good, but there is a lot of that can be done. So like I say, I'm more reconciled to this air system. I don't know that I need big flying air counters moving across the battlefield. I do feel we need, and I don't know the technical difficulties, I've never had it explained to me, of why you can't make this air unit travel across, say, these 2 air zones to get to Berlin, or bombers with maybe fighter escort can't fly across these to then operate here and then fly back and take attrition losses based upon air operations in the intermediate zones. I don't know the technical difficulties, but I believe there is a technical difficulty with the engine, is why they don't do it. So I don't know the answer to it. I don't know whether the answer is to try to scrap it and go back to Hearts of Iron 3 air operations, which has its own serious problems too. Don't at all say, oh, it was working perfectly good in 3, you effed it up in 4. No, it wasn't working perfectly good. In some of the ways, it is better in 4. I am reasonably reconciled to the idea of random aircraft flying around the zones to give me some indication of where air is operating, and not needing the counters. You do know I love counters and would prefer that as that. Hey, planning a preemptive invasion of Europe, Suvorov style? No, I'm not. We're going to sort of go down. It's more of this playthrough is more of how well can we stand off a German invasion? Is it easy? Is it hard? Hey, just say hi, Genosis. Good to have you here. Is it easy? Is it hard? Whatever it is, we'll see. Okay. And I don't know what the settings and what I'm doing. Instruction level 3 is done. We're going to Japanese Mariana Islands dispute diplomatic protest. The Japanese envoy have lodged a strong diplomatic protest with our government regarding the possession of the presence of our attaché in nations. They are currently in a military conflict. They demand we immediately. This is Japanese Mariana Island diplomatic issue. This is we have people. We have an attaché in China. Our attachés will be sent where they go where we want to send them. Okay. Now we are going to do extraction because that's what really is what I want to do, is make sure we have enough resources. Now currently we have, except for rubber, which we're importing, we currently have plenty of resources, even aluminum. And I'm not saying unlimited amounts, but I do know a bunch of those resources are sort of in some of these areas here that we may lose control over. So having better extraction where everywhere is a good thing. I prefer when I'd be able to see on a special screen auto-generated wings where the AI uses them, placing aircraft into an area, use doctrine, set priorities, air attacks, stuff. Let stuff happen. Yes. Well, one, I don't like to micromanage my air operations. That's a personal thing, so that's fine. And I know a lot of people would rather set up, draw battle lines. Where I like to micromanage my ground operations. Okay, I'm looking here. Okay, I think we can add couple of more divisions to our production queue. Talented new officers, lowers, okay, well, I guess, we'll do this. So it's supposedly reducing. Yeah, it's reduced it a little bit because it was max volunteer was negative 74, and it was division organization negative 45. So we're slowly reducing officer purge. Machine assisted decryption, very nice. Oh no, this is what we look at. Okay, we don't so much want to do anti-partisan warfare. Research finish, good. We'll get to that in a moment. Localized training centers. Okay, we'll do that. More Soviet spies. We'll improve our anti-tank guns, and we're going to come over here, and we're on our artillery. We're going to upgrade our artillery. Yeah, I'm willing to take some trade-offs to get some of the good stuff, because like equipment production and unit training, this type of stuff is wonderful. What I don't like, though it's a minor issue, and I'll readily admit that it's a minor issue, we're going to deploy these guys slightly early, get them onto mostly the same thing, is the idea that within Hearts of Iron 3 we can take one brigade and from one division and attach it to another division. Some people like to do it, and I'm not saying I don't like to do it, but some people particularly like to do it because of sort of historical trade-offs, like in the Waffen SS divisions. That yeah, I can live without easily. The other sort of thing is sort of like the conf groups that you have in Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice and or other specialty small units that including things like railway artillery that you can attach to a particular division and unattach it to a division. So right now with this we could create, and you do now have the ability to have locked templates, so you can't just spam out. Now, not just the idea of only a few because of being elite status, but you can do locked templates that you can't just change over or build more of with the right settings, so that you can have, say, a division, like what would otherwise be a standard division, plus it has a railway artillery unit. That's, so now you've turned this into a siege division. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. I would prefer it to be able to attach and detach, say, railway artillery for besieging, Fortress Moscow, or adding a combined arms or a commando unit to because a commando unit on its own in this scale of warfare will do nothing. But you can attach the commando unit to, say, a regular ground division and give it a little special boost. That is a good thing. And would be nice. Okay, let's see here. Let's in progress or infiltrate civilian administration. Maybe we can infiltrate the nationalist government effectively. Well, that's really what they did on steroids, was infiltrate the Republican government, of course. Okay, so we got some fighters in decent production. Tactical bombers are not in decent production. I think, and I was been thinking a little bit about this, I think we're going to go a little more tactical bomber focus than close support, just because of the likely distance from whatever air bases we have to operations. It's so open here. That may be a tactical mistake, but let's sort of focus more on tactical than close air support. I know we could build more air bases, but right now we're just building up our factories. Poland refuses German ultimatum. Okay. Declared war on them. Now, do we get a chance to move in here, or is it just going to happen? Intelligence agency completed. Okay, well, let's see. With a first attempt dash by high waves, a second landing attempted. Success delivered the team safely to our shore. Safely to shore, our team. Okay. Close. Political power, civilian infiltration, nationalist Spain. Okay, excellent. Don't know. Localized training centers is what we're producing. 2 more days. We've now infiltrated the... Oh, come on, spies here. Capture Cipher. Don't know that we really even want to pursue this anymore. I don't know. Because maybe we should be looking more at Germany for doing this. That would probably be the better solution. We'll think about that. That was more started because we were doing the Spanish Civil War, and I wanted to keep that going there. Well, I think we're going to end this episode here. Let's save this with the starting of the Polish campaign. It seems like a good spot to end the episode. So I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Okay, well, honestly, I mostly watch your campaign videos with this live streams being uploaded. Yes, Genosis, yes, I'm making episodes. They will go up on YouTube to watch normally. I just do this so that you have a chance to interact with me, and I could just make live streams and let them sort of die, but I would rather sort of do double duty. Oh no, World War II, run away. Yes, run away. Okay, I think we're going to end the live stream here. I'm going to sort of save whatever's going to happen with Poland and our reactions and events to it for next episode next time, and I don't know if I want to play another full episode. So yeah, so don't worry. Want to try out Enlisted? I already tried it a little bit, Ari. I don't know that I want to play it right now much. So I'm not going to be doing that right now. I'm going to take a little bit of break and maybe try a little of Enlisted. I did play a little of the Battle of Berlin. I mean, just less than 5 minutes. Wasn't fair. It was sort of before this, and I just downloaded the update to Enlisted and then tried it for a few minutes. So yeah, everybody watching now, you'll be able to see stuff later. So tomorrow, War Thunder. If I haven't finished grinding, we're going to continue grinding the VE Day event. So I'm going to get through it. I got the Soviet boat already. Not quite yet halfway to the German thing. The Navy was really good. So I'll do that, War Thunder. And Wednesday we're doing Strategic Command World War I. I don't know whether I'm going to be playing their new special scenario, the Ludendorff Offensive, or whether continuing one of my already going campaigns for Strategic Command World War I, but that'll be Wednesday on Slytherin's channel, and then of course next weekend we'll be back. Custom battles only if I get the event finished grinded. I want to get that through the event. The event. Then we will see about some of your ideas for custom battles. Definitely, but first the event.